When I got married, I never told my wife or her mother that the apartment we moved into belonged to me. And thankfully I kept quiet, because after the wedding, my mother-in-law and my wife ended up doing something I never saw coming. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days when I signed the papers. November in the city, that turns everything gray and wet. Makes you think about shelter, about permanence, about the kind of life you want to build when the world feels this cold. I was 28, sitting in a lawyer's office that smelled like old books and expensive coffee, signing my name on a deed that would change everything, though I didn't know it then. Not really. The apartment was mine, fully paid. No mortgage, no landlord, no strings. Just 4 walls, 2 bedrooms, and a view of the park that turned golden every October. I'd saved for 6 years, worked double shifts at the hospital, invested carefully, lived in a studio the size of a closet while my friends bought cars and took vacations. But I wanted something solid, something that couldn't be taken away, something that was just mine. My mother used to say, I was too careful, too calculated. You're going to wake up one day and realize you've been so busy planning for tomorrow that you forgot to live today. She'd tell me, usually while making her famous lemon cake, the one that tasted like childhood and Sunday mornings. She died before she could see me buy the apartment, before she could see me meet Sarah. I met Sarah 4 months after I bought the place, at a friend's wedding, which feels almost too perfect to be true, but that's how it happened. She was a bridesmaid in emerald green, laughing at something her cousin said, and when she turned and our eyes met across that crowded reception hall, I felt something I'd never felt before. Not love at first sight, I'm too practical for that kind of romance, but recognition, like I'd been waiting for her without knowing I was waiting. We dated for 18 months, slow and steady, the way I do everything. Coffee dates that turned into dinner dates, that turned into weekends away. She was a teacher, 4th grade, and she talked about her students the way some people talk about their own children, with this fierce, protective love that made my chest ache. She was warm where I was cautious, spontaneous where I was planned, and somehow we fit together like puzzle pieces that didn't know they were from the same box. I never told her about the apartment. I know how that sounds. I know what you're thinking. Why wouldn't I tell the woman I loved that I owned property, that I had assets, security, a foundation we could build on? But here's the thing. Sarah came from money, real money. The kind where you summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen, where your mother has a ladies who lunch schedule and your father plays golf with senators. Her family had a compound, they actually called it that, the compound in Connecticut, with multiple houses on 40 acres of waterfront. When she introduced me to her parents, her mother, Patricia, looked at me the way you'd look at a stray dog that followed you home, polite enough not to kick it, but certainly not planning to keep it. I was a nurse, middle-class background, scholarship to state school. My father was a mechanic. My mother had cleaned houses before she got sick. I was everything Patricia had probably hoped her daughter would avoid. A nurse, Patricia, had said that first dinner, swirling wine in a glass that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. How? Practical. The word hung in the air like an insult wrapped in silk. Sarah didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it, the way you ignore a splinter until it gets infected. She held my hand under the table, squeezed it when her mother made those subtle digs about career advancement and social circles and Sarah's potential. I smiled, nodded, passed the salt, let Patricia think whatever she wanted to think. Because I knew something Patricia didn't. I wasn't trying to marry her daughter's money. I had my own. When Sarah and I got engaged, I proposed on a beach at sunset because she loved cliches and I loved making her happy. Patricia's attitude shifted. Not warmer, exactly, but more strategic. She started planning the wedding immediately, taking over with the kind of military precision that would make generals nervous. Venue, flowers, guest list, cake, all decided before Sarah and I even had a chance to discuss what we wanted. "Let Mother handle it," Sarah would say, exhausted after another 6-hour planning session. "It makes her happy, and honestly, I don't care if the napkins are ecru or ivory." I should have cared more about the warning signs, about the way Patricia started making decisions for us, about us, without us. About the way Sarah deferred to her mother on everything from the wedding dress to the honeymoon destination. But I was in love, and love makes you stupid in ways that logic can't fix. The apartment question came up 3 months before the wedding. We were having dinner, just Sarah and me, at this little Italian place we loved, the kind where they know your order before you sit down. Sarah was twirling pasta on her fork, talking about work, when she suddenly said, "We should start looking for a place." My heart did this strange double beat thing. A place? To live. After the wedding. She smiled. And God, her smile could still make me forget my own name. I mean, your studio is adorable, but it's tiny. And my apartment is, well, it's my parents' investment property, so we can't stay there. We need something that's ours. Ours. The word felt heavy and light at the same time. I could have told her then. Should have told her then. Actually, I have a place. 2-bedroom, great location, fully paid for. We can move in tomorrow if you want. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the memory of Patricia's face when she first assessed me, calculating my worth in the space of a handshake. "Yeah," I said instead. "We should start looking." We looked at apartments every weekend for a month. Sarah would point out features: exposed brick, updated kitchen, good natural light, while I nodded and pretended to care. The whole time, my apartment sat empty, waiting. I'd been living in it for months, but kept most of my furniture in storage, maintained my studio lease as a cover. It was elaborate and probably stupid, but I told myself I had my reasons. Patricia came apartment hunting with us twice. Both times were disasters. She criticized everything. The neighborhoods weren't safe enough. The buildings weren't prestigious enough. The square footage wasn't adequate for when grandchildren come along. That last comment made Sarah blush and me want to walk into traffic. On the second hunt, Patricia pulled me aside while Sarah was talking to a realtor. "You know," she said, voice low and sharp, "Sarah is used to a certain standard of living. I hope you understand what that means." I understood perfectly. She was telling me I wasn't enough, that I'd never be enough. "I'll take care of her," I said, meeting her eyes. "That's all that matters." Patricia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll see." 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah came home upset. We were at her apartment, the investment property her parents owned, and she collapsed on the couch like someone had cut her strings. "Mother found us an apartment," she said, voice flat. My stomach dropped. "What?" "She found a place. 2-bedroom in her building. She's offered to cover the rent for the first year as a wedding gift." Sarah looked at me, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "It's really nice, and it would save us so much money while we save for a down payment." The building Patricia lived in was one of those old money fortresses on the Upper East Side. Doormen who looked like they moonlighted as Secret Service. A lobby with actual marble. The kind of place where Patricia could drop by whenever she wanted, where she'd run into us in the elevator, where we'd never really be alone. "What do you think?" Sarah asked. What I thought was that this was a trap. A gilded, expensive trap designed to keep me under Patricia's control. What I thought was that I had a perfectly good apartment collecting dust while we played this charade. What I thought was that I was an idiot for not telling the truth from the beginning. What I said was, "If it makes you happy." Sarah's face lit up, and she kissed me, and I hated myself a little bit more. The wedding was everything Patricia wanted, and nothing I would have chosen. 300 guests, most of whom I'd never met. A sit-down dinner that cost more than my car. Flowers everywhere, cascading and color-coordinated, and probably shipped from somewhere ridiculous like Ecuador. Sarah looked beautiful. She would have looked beautiful in a burlap sack, but the designer dress didn't hurt, and when she walked down the aisle, I forgot about everything else. About Patricia's disapproval, about the apartment situation, about all the small deceptions that had built up like plaque. In that moment, watching her come toward me, I thought, it'll be fine. We love each other. That's all that matters. I was so stupid. The reception was a blur of champagne and speeches and dancing. Patricia's toast was pointed lots of jokes about Sarah marrying down and how love conquers all, even different backgrounds. My best friend David caught my eye during it and mimed drinking poison. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. We left for our honeymoon Paris, Patricia's choice in a haze of rice and good wishes, 2 weeks of museums and cafes and sex in a hotel room that overlooked the Seine. It was perfect. Sarah was perfect. I almost forgot about the apartment waiting back home, the one I still hadn't mentioned. Almost. We returned to reality on a Tuesday. Jet-lagged and happy, we took a cab straight to our new place, Patricia's building, Patricia's wedding gift, Patricia's invisible leash. Sarah had the key her mother had given her at the reception. We rode the elevator up to the 14th floor, her head on my shoulder, both of us exhausted and content. The apartment was nice. I'll give Patricia that. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, big windows that let in good light. It was also completely furnished. Not just furnished, decorated. Staged like a showroom, every detail chosen by someone else. Sarah didn't seem to notice, too busy exclaiming over the thoughtful touches her mother had added. I noticed that we had no say in our own home. I noticed that the apartment felt like a museum, not a life. I noticed that even here, in what was supposed to be our private space, Patricia's presence was everywhere. Isn't it wonderful? Sarah spun around, arms wide, taking it all in. Yeah, I said, setting down our suitcases. Wonderful. That night, after we'd unpacked and ordered Chinese food and christened the bedroom Patricia had decorated, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sarah was asleep beside me, breathing soft and even. Through the wall, I could hear muffled TV sounds from a neighbor. Outside, the city hummed its endless song. I thought about my apartment. My real apartment. The one with the park view and the mortgage I'd already paid off, and the emptiness that was waiting to be filled with our life, our choices, our mess and beauty, and everything in between. I thought about telling Sarah, rolling over, waking her up, saying, I need to tell you something, but I didn't, because the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of her reaction, afraid of the questions, afraid that she'd look at me differently. Afraid that Patricia would find some way to twist it, to make it seem like I'd been testing Sarah, or hiding assets, or planning some kind of elaborate con. So I stayed quiet, kept my secret, told myself it didn't matter, that the apartment was just property, that what Sarah and I had was bigger than real estate, or pride, or any of it. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be lies. The rain started again that night. I listened to it, hit the windows of an apartment that wasn't mine, in a building where my mother-in-law lived 6 floors up, and I wondered what the hell I'd done. If you've ever kept a secret from someone you love, you know how it grows, how it starts as this small thing, this manageable omission, and then it gets bigger, heavier, until it's this presence in every conversation, every decision, every moment of honesty that isn't quite honest enough. That's what the apartment became, a secret that grew in the dark. And secrets, I would learn, have a way of coming out at exactly the wrong time. The first week in Patricia's building felt like living in a hotel. Everything was too clean, too perfect, too staged. Sarah loved it. She'd wake up every morning and pad around the apartment like she was discovering it for the first time, running her hands over the granite countertops, adjusting the throw pillows on the couch that I wasn't allowed to actually throw anywhere, opening cabinets to admire the matching dishware Patricia had selected. "Can you believe this is ours?" she'd say, pouring coffee into cups that probably cost $50 each. I'd smile and nod and think, it's not ours. It's your mother's. We're just living in her vision of what our life should look like. But I didn't say that. I'd already swallowed so many words that I was starting to choke on them. Patricia visited on day 3, not called ahead, not asked if we were settled, just showed up with a key she'd apparently kept for herself. Sarah and I were still in bed when we heard the front door open. It was 8:30 on a Saturday morning. I was halfway through a dream about my old apartment, the one with the park view, when Sarah jolted awake. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. We both froze, listening. Footsteps in the living room. The sound of someone moving through our space with the confidence of ownership. "Hello?" Sarah called out, reaching for her robe. "Just me, darling," Patricia's voice rang out, bright and intrusive. "I brought breakfast." Sarah's face relaxed immediately. She actually smiled. Oh, that's so sweet of her. I wanted to scream. Instead, I got dressed and joined them in the kitchen, where Patricia had unpacked what looked like half a bakery onto our counter. Croissants, scones, fresh fruit, expensive jam in little glass jars with French labels. I thought you two could use a proper breakfast after all that travel, Patricia said, kissing Sarah's cheek. She glanced at me, and I saw that flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She'd established the dynamic she wanted. This was her territory, and I was just visiting. Thanks, Patricia, I said. Because what else could I say? Your boundary violations are noted and unwelcome. Please don't use the key we didn't know you had. Oh, please, call me Mother, she said, waving her hand dismissively. We're family now. We sat around the dining table she'd chosen, eating pastries I hadn't asked for, while Patricia detailed all the wonderful people in the building we simply had to meet. The Hendersons on 12 who summered in Nantucket, the Chen family on 15 who owned a gallery in Chelsea, the building's social ecosystem, carefully curated and strategically positioned. Sarah ate it up, literally and figuratively, nodding along while her mother described dinner parties and building events and the culture of the place. I watched my wife transform into a younger version of Patricia with every word, and something in my chest tightened. This was a mistake. All of it. The wedding, the apartment, the silence, about my own place. I'd let Patricia orchestrate our entire lives, and now we were living in her dollhouse, playing the roles she'd assigned us. After an hour, Patricia finally left, but not before reminding us about Sunday brunch at her apartment. Just a small thing, she said. Only 20 people or so. I want to introduce you properly to everyone. When the door closed behind her, I turned to Sarah. Does she always just come in? Sarah was clearing plates, humming something soft under her breath. What? Your mom. Does she always use her key without asking? She looked at me like I'd asked if the sky was usually blue. She brought us breakfast. That was really thoughtful. She walked into our apartment while we were sleeping. Our apartment that she's paying for, Sarah said, and there was an edge to her voice I hadn't heard before. I think bringing us croissants is a pretty small ask in return. I opened my mouth to argue, to say that privacy wasn't something you bartered for rent, that boundaries mattered, that this whole situation was deeply weird, but I closed it again. Because Sarah was looking at me with this expression that was half defensive, half confused, like I was the one being unreasonable. Maybe I was. Maybe this was normal in her world. Maybe I was the problem. I went back to work on Monday, grateful for the escape. The hospital was chaos, in the best way controlled chaos, purposeful chaos, the kind where you're too busy saving lives to think about your own mess. I picked up extra shifts that week, told Sarah it was because we were short-staffed, which was true, but the fuller truth was that I needed space from Patricia's building, and Patricia's furniture, and Patricia's constant presence in our marriage. David cornered me in the break room on Thursday. We'd been friends since nursing school, bonded over late-night study sessions and the shared trauma of our first Code Blue. He was one of maybe 3 people who knew about my apartment, and the only one who knew I hadn't told Sarah. So, he said, settling into the chair across from me with his terrible vending machine coffee. How's married life? I must have made a face because he laughed. That good, huh? It's fine, I said. Liar. Give-a-do, I sighed, rubbing my eyes. We'd just finished a 12-hour shift, and I was too tired to maintain the pretense. We're living in her mother's building. In an apartment her mother furnished, and her mother has a key and uses it whenever she wants. David winced. Yikes. Yeah. Have you told Sarah about your place yet? No. Why the hell not? It was a good question. One I'd been asking myself every night while Sarah slept beside me in a bed her mother had picked out. Because now it's been too long. Because if I tell her now, she'll ask why I didn't tell her before. And I don't have a good answer that doesn't make me sound insane, or manipulative, or both. So, you're just going to, what? Keep living this lie? It's not a lie. It's an omission. That's what liars say to make themselves feel better. David leaned forward. his expression serious. "Look, I love you, man, but this is stupid. You're married now. You're supposed to be building a life together. How are you going to do that when you're keeping something this big from her?" He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something and being able to act on it are very different things. "I'll tell her," I said. "Soon." "When?" "Soon." David shook his head, but he dropped it. We talked about other things, hospital gossip, his disastrous dating life, the game on Sunday, normal things, easy things, things that didn't make my chest feel like it was caving in. I got home late that night, after 10. Sarah was already in bed, reading one of her romance novels with the lamp on her nightstand casting warm light across her face. She looked up when I came in and smiled, and for a moment, everything was okay. This was my wife, my person, the woman I'd chosen and who'd chosen me back. "Long day?" she asked. "Yeah. Sorry I'm late." "It's okay. I had dinner with Mother." Of course she did. I showered, changed, slid into bed beside her. She put down her book and curled into me, her head on my chest, her hand over my heart. This was us. This was real. Everything else was just complications. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." And I did. God, I did. That was the worst part. The weekend brought Patricia's brunch, the small thing that turned out to be a carefully orchestrated social performance. Sarah spent Saturday shopping for an outfit, returning home with bags from stores I'd never heard of and a dress that cost more than my monthly student loan payment used to be. "Mother says first impressions matter," she explained, holding the dress up against herself in the mirror. "These are the people we'll be living around. We want them to like us." "They'll like you no matter what you wear," I said, which was true. Sarah had this quality, this warmth, this genuine kindness that made people gravitate toward her. It was one of the things I'd fallen in love with. But she shook her head, already convinced by Patricia's logic. "You don't understand how these things work. There's a protocol." I wanted to say that protocol was just a fancy word for pretension, but I bit my tongue. Again, I was getting good at that. My tongue was probably scarred from how often I bit it. Sunday arrived with the kind of bright, cold sunshine that makes everything look sharp and unforgiving. We dressed carefully, Sarah in her new dress, me in a blazer I'd bought specifically for this kind of event, the kind where you're being evaluated by people who measure worth in stock portfolios and vacation homes. Patricia's apartment was on the 20th floor, a sprawling 3-bedroom with views that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. She decorated in what I'd learned to recognize as her signature style. Expensive but cold. Beautiful but untouchable. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine spread, not a home where people actually lived. The other guests were exactly what I'd expected. Wealthy, polished, the kind of people who said things like, "Our place in the Hamptons," and "when we were in Tuscany last month," without a trace of self-awareness. They smiled at me with varying degrees of warmth, assessed me with varying degrees of subtlety, and probably forgot my name within 5 minutes of learning it. I was introduced as Sarah's husband, the nurse, not by name, not by any other identifying characteristic, just the nurse, like it was my species rather than my profession. Patricia held court in her living room, orchestrating conversations like a conductor leading an orchestra. She'd position people strategically, guide discussions toward topics she found suitable, and redirect anything that threatened to become too personal or too real. It was impressive, in a terrifying kind of way. She'd turned human interaction into a performance art. Sarah thrived in it. I watched her move through the room, laughing at the right moments, asking the right questions, slipping seamlessly into this world that should have been foreign but clearly wasn't. This was how she'd grown up. This was her normal. And I realized, standing there with a mimosa I didn't want and a smile I didn't mean, that I'd married someone whose normal was my nightmare. "So, nursing?" said a man named Bradford or Branford or something equally pretentious. He was a hedge fund manager, or maybe a venture capitalist. I'd stopped keeping track. That must be rewarding. The way he said rewarding made it clear he meant limiting or unfortunate. or beneath us. It is, I said evenly. I help people on what's often the worst day of their lives. Yeah, I'd say that's rewarding. He blinked, caught off guard by my directness. Of course. Very noble work. Noble, like I was some kind of charity case, doing good deeds for the less fortunate rather than a trained professional with a degree in skills and actual value beyond my tax bracket. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a break from the performance. Patricia's bathroom was bigger than my first apartment, the studio I'd lived in while saving for my real place. Marble everywhere, heated floors, a mirror with lighting that probably cost more than my car. I stared at my reflection, at this person in a blazer that felt like a costume, and wondered who the hell I was becoming. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Surviving? I typed back, barely. Send help, or alcohol, preferably both. His response was immediate. You're married to her, not her mother. Remember that. But was I? Because it was starting to feel like I'd married both of them. Like Patricia came as part of the package, an eternal third wheel in our relationship, always there, always watching, always judging. When I came back out, Patricia was telling a story about Sarah's childhood, something about a piano recital and a competition she'd won. Sarah was blushing, pleased and embarrassed in equal measure. The other guests were listening with polite interest, making appropriate sounds of approval. She's always been exceptional, Patricia said, her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Even as a little girl, we knew she was destined for great things. The implication hung in the air, heavy and clear. And then, she married you. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, exactly. Something colder. Something that felt like clarity freezing over. This was never going to work. Not like this. Not with Patricia orchestrating every move, controlling every aspect of our lives, making sure we lived up to her standards and her vision and her version of what success looked like. And Sarah, my Sarah, the woman I loved, was letting it happen. Was maybe even wanting it to happen. Because this was her normal, and I was the abnormal variable. She was trying to fit into an equation that had been solved before I even entered it. The brunch lasted another 2 hours. By the time we finally escaped back to our apartment, Patricia's apartment, really, I felt like I'd run a marathon. Emotionally exhausted, physically drained, spiritually depleted. Sarah kicked off her heels with a happy sigh. That went well, don't you think? Yeah, I said, loosening my tie. Great. She looked at me, really looked at me, and frowned. You didn't enjoy yourself. It's not really my scene. You didn't even try. There was that edge again, sharper this time. These are our neighbors, our community. You could have made more of an effort. I did make an effort. I smiled and nodded and made small talk about things I don't care about with people who clearly don't care about me. That's not fair, isn't it? I turned to face her fully. Your mother introduced me as the nurse 4 separate times, not by my name, my profession. Like that's all I am. Sarah's face flushed. She was just trying to help people understand who you are. I'm your husband. That's who I am. You know what I mean. Yeah, I do. I mean exactly what you mean. I'm the guy who doesn't fit, the one who married up, the nurse who got lucky. No one thinks that, Sarah said, but her voice wavered. Your mother does. My mother has been nothing but generous to us. She gave us this apartment. She's trying to help us build a life here. And you're— I'm what? I interrupted. Ungrateful? Is that what you were going to say? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and I felt like an asshole. Because she was right. Patricia had been generous, in her way. The apartment was beautiful. The rent-free situation was giving us financial breathing room. On paper, I should have been grateful. But gratitude and resentment can exist in the same space. And I was drowning in both. I'm sorry, I said, softer. I need us to have our own life, our own space, not your mother's version of what our life should be. This is our own space, Sarah said, gesturing around the apartment that Patricia had furnished and decorated and still had a key to. I almost told her then, Almost said, "I have a place. We could move there tomorrow. It's ours, really ours. No rent, no Patricia, no performance." But I didn't, because the moment had passed, or maybe because I was a coward, or maybe because I could already see how that conversation would go. The questions, the hurt, the betrayal in her eyes when she realized I'd been keeping this from her all along. So I apologized again, held her while she cried, promised to try harder, to be more gracious, to appreciate what we had. And late that night, after she'd fallen asleep, I looked up my apartment online. The property records, the deed with my name on it, proof that somewhere in this city, I had something that was wholly mine. It felt like looking at a photograph of a life I used to live, or maybe a life I'd never actually lived at all, just imagined, planned for, built in my head, while reality went a completely different direction. My phone lit up with another text from David. "You okay?" I stared at the question for a long time before responding. I don't know anymore. Because I didn't. I was married to a woman I loved, living in an apartment I hated, keeping a secret that grew bigger every day, and slowly losing track of who I was supposed to be in all of this. The rain started again outside, hitting the windows of the 14th floor. Somewhere above us, Patricia was probably sleeping soundly in her immaculate apartment, satisfied with how her plans were unfolding. And somewhere across the city, my apartment sat empty, waiting for a life that might never happen. I fell asleep to the sound of rain and my own doubts, and dreamed of a door I couldn't open, a key that wouldn't turn, and Sarah's voice asking questions I couldn't answer. 3 months into marriage, I started keeping a list in my phone. Nothing dramatic, just small observations. Times Patricia used her key without calling first. Decisions Sarah made after consulting her mother instead of me. Moments when I felt like a guest in my own life. The list grew faster than I expected. January 8th, Patricia rearranged our kitchen cabinets while we were at work. "More efficient this way," she said when Sarah thanked her. January 15th, Sarah canceled our weekend plans to help her mother host a charity event. Found out about it when Patricia mentioned it at dinner. January 23rd, came home to find Patricia had replaced our shower curtain. The other one was looking dingy, she explained. January 29th, Sarah asked her mother's opinion about switching jobs before mentioning it to me. February 3rd, Patricia commented that I'd gained weight. Sarah agreed with her. February 10th, found Patricia going through our mail. "Just organizing for you, dear." I showed David the list during a night shift in early February. We were in the staff lounge at 3 a.m., that dead zone between late emergencies and early morning rounds when the hospital feels suspended in time. He scrolled through it, his expression growing darker with each entry. "This is insane." "Is it, though?" I asked, genuinely uncertain. Maybe this is just how families operate when they're close. Close as having dinner once a week. This is, he searched for the word, parasitic. She's basically living your life for you. Sarah doesn't see it that way. Sarah grew up in it. She thinks it's normal. David handed my phone back. "But you didn't. And it's not. You know that, right?" I did know it. In my gut, in my bones, in every instinct that told me something was wrong. But knowing something and being able to act on it, especially when the person you love disagrees, are entirely different things. Work became my sanctuary. The hospital was the one place Patricia couldn't reach, couldn't control, couldn't rearrange according to her preferences. When I was checking vitals or administering meds or holding someone's hand while they got bad news, I was just myself. Not Sarah's husband, not Patricia's disappointing son-in-law, not the nurse who'd married above his station, just me. I started taking extra shifts again, Sarah noticed. "You're never home anymore," she said one Thursday evening. I'd just walked in after a double, exhausted down to my cellular level. She was curled on the couch, Patricia's couch, with a glass of wine, and that expression I'd learned meant trouble. "We're short-staffed," I said, which was true, but not the whole truth. "You're avoiding us." "Us?" "Me. This apartment. Our life." She set down her wine with a sharp click. "Mother thinks—" "I don't care what your mother thinks," I interrupted. and immediately regretted it. Sarah's face went pale, then flushed red. "Excuse me?" "I'm sorry, that came out wrong." I sat down beside her, tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." "Every day is a long day for you now. You're choosing work over me." "That's not fair. I'm working so we can save money, build a future." "We don't need to save money. Mother's already offered to help with a down payment when we're ready to buy." And there it was, the fundamental disconnect in our marriage. Sarah saw her mother's help as generosity. I saw it as a leash, getting tighter with every gift, every offer, every intrusion. "I don't want your mother's money for a down payment," I said carefully. "Why not? She wants to help us." "Because I want us to do this ourselves, as a couple, just us." Sarah laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "That's so typical of you. So proud. You'd rather struggle and work yourself to death than accept help from people who love us." "It's not about pride." "Then what is it about? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you resent my family for having money. Like you're punishing me for not being poor enough for your taste." The accusation hit like a slap. "That's not what this is about." "Then explain it to me. Explain why you're so resistant to every kindness my mother shows us. Why you work doubles and triples when we live in a free apartment. Why you look like you're being tortured every time we have dinner with my family." I could have told her then. Should have told her then. "Because I own a goddamn apartment and we don't need any of this." Was right there, on the tip of my tongue, ready to explode out and end this charade. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the look on her face, hurt and confused and so certain that I was the problem. Maybe it was the fear that if I told her now, after months of lying by omission, she'd never forgive me. Maybe I was just a coward. "I want us to be independent," I said instead. "I want our life to be ours, not something your mother designs and controls." "She's not controlling anything. She's being supportive." "She has a key to our apartment that she uses whenever she wants. She rearranges our things. She makes decisions about our lives without asking us. How is that not controlling?" Sarah stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. "She's my mother. She cares about us." "If you can't understand that, if you can't appreciate what she's trying to do, then maybe the problem isn't her. Maybe it's you." She walked away, into the bedroom, and closed the door with a soft click that somehow felt louder than if she'd slammed it. I sat on Patricia's couch, in Patricia's apartment, surrounded by Patricia's choices, and felt the walls closing in. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia herself. "Sarah called. She's upset. We should talk." Of course, Sarah had called her mother. Of course, Patricia knew about our fight, before the tears had even dried. This was our life now. No privacy, no boundaries, no separation between our marriage and Patricia's influence. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I grabbed my coat and left. The February night was bitter cold, the kind that makes your lungs hurt when you breathe. I walked without direction, hands shoved in my pockets, breath clouding in front of me. The city was quieter than usual, muffled by the cold. Most people smart enough to stay inside. I found myself heading east, toward my apartment, the one I owned, the one sitting empty while I played house in Patricia's building. I hadn't been there in weeks. Part of me was avoiding it, seeing it felt like pressing on a bruise, a reminder of all the choices I'd made that led me here. But tonight, I needed it. Needed to remember that I had something of my own, even if no one else knew it existed. The building was quiet when I arrived, the lobby empty except for the night doorman who nodded at me with vague recognition. I took the elevator to the 8th floor, walked down the familiar hallway, and stood outside my door. My door, my lock, my key turning in it. The apartment smelled stale from disuse, but it was still mine. Still exactly as I'd left it, minimally furnished, mostly empty, full of potential that I'd never realized. The hardwood floors I'd been so excited about, the kitchen with the updated appliances, the view of the park that looked magical under streetlights, and fresh snow. I stood at the window and looked out at the city, at this neighborhood I'd chosen, at this life I'd planned before everything got complicated. My phone rang. Sarah. I let it go to voicemail. Then listened to the message. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. But I'm scared. You're pulling away from me, and I don't know why. And Mother thinks, just come home, please. We need to talk. Mother thinks. Always Mother thinks. Like Patricia's thoughts carried more weight than mine, like her opinion mattered more than my feelings. I called David instead. It's midnight, he answered, voice rough with sleep. I'm at my apartment. Silence. Then, shit. Yeah. Did you tell her? No. Are you going to? I don't know. Maybe. She thinks I'm the problem. That I'm being ungrateful and proud and resentful. Are you? I laughed, hollow. Probably. But I'm also right. Her mother is taking over our entire lives, and Sarah either doesn't see it or doesn't care. So tell her. Show her this place. Let her see that you're not some broke nurse trying to social climb, that you had your own plan, your own life, before she came along. And then what? She asks why I didn't tell her sooner, and I don't have a good answer? The truth is a good answer. You were scared. You wanted her to love you for you, not for what you owned. You got in too deep and didn't know how to get out. David's voice softened. Man, you're not the first person to make a mistake in a relationship, but you are making it worse by not coming clean. He was right. I knew he was right. But right doesn't always feel achievable when you're standing in an empty apartment, watching snow fall on a city that suddenly feels foreign, married to someone who might not know you at all. I spent the night there, slept on the couch I'd bought years ago, before Sarah, before Patricia, before everything got so complicated. It wasn't comfortable. I'd bought it for looks, not function, but it was mine. Every spring that dug into my back was mine. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a dozen texts, most from Sarah, increasing in urgency and worry. 2 from Patricia, cool and pointed. This behavior is unacceptable, and Sarah deserves better than this. That last one made me laugh. Patricia had no idea what Sarah deserved, what she already had, what I'd been keeping from her. I went home around 8 a.m., still wearing yesterday's clothes, unshowered and exhausted. Sarah was pacing the living room, still in her pajamas, her eyes red from crying. Where were you? She demanded. I needed space. I went for a walk, crashed at David's. The lie came easily, too easily. All night? Without telling me? I thought something happened to you. I almost called the police. I'm sorry. I should have texted. You should have come home. She was crying again, and I felt like the worst person alive. You just left. In the middle of a fight, you just walked out. You closed the bedroom door. What was I supposed to do? Come after me! Talk to me! Not disappear for 12 hours? She wiped her eyes angrily. Mother was right. You're not ready for this. For marriage? For commitment? Stop, I said, more sharply than I intended. Stop citing your mother like she's some kind of authority on our relationship. This is between us, not her. Us. She's my mother. She knows me better than anyone. Better than your husband? Right now? Yes. The words hung in the air, painful and clear. Because my husband is a stranger who works all the time and resents my family and disappears without explanation. I opened my mouth to argue, to defend myself, to finally tell the truth that might fix everything or destroy it completely. But Patricia's key turned in the lock, and suddenly she was there, sweeping in like she owned the place, which, technically, she did. Oh, thank God, Patricia said, going straight to Sarah. Darling, I was so worried. When you called this morning, she looked at me over Sarah's shoulder, and her expression was pure ice. We need to talk. All of us. No, I said. We don't. This is between Sarah and me. When my daughter is crying at 7 a.m. because her husband abandoned her, it becomes my concern. I didn't abandon her. I took a walk. For 12 hours. Without your phone, without telling anyone where you were going. Patricia settled Sarah onto the couch, then turned to face me fully. This is a pattern. The long hours at work, the resistance to family events, the general hostility toward anyone trying to help you build a proper life. A proper life, I repeated. According to whose definition? According to reality. You're married now. You have responsibilities. You can't just run away when things get difficult. The irony was suffocating. Here was Patricia, lecturing me about running away, when her constant presence in our marriage was exactly what I was running from. Maybe if we had some privacy, I said, some space to work through our issues without interference, things would be different. Privacy? Patricia laughed. You mean isolation? You want to cut Sarah off from her family, from her support system, so you can, what? Control her? That's not. I've seen men like you before. Patricia continued, her voice sharp as glass. Threatened by a woman with resources, with family, with options. You want her dependent on you, grateful to you, trapped with you. That's insane, I said, but my voice sounded weak, even to my own ears. Is it? Then explain the long hours. Explain the resistance to help. Explain why you're so determined to struggle when we're offering you a better way. Sarah was watching me, waiting for an answer. And I had one. I had the perfect answer. The truth that would blow Patricia's theory apart and prove that I wasn't threatened by resources because I had my own. But looking at Sarah's tear-stained face, at the way she was sitting so close to her mother, at the united front they presented, I realized that the truth might not matter. Because even if I told them about the apartment, Patricia would find a way to twist it, to make it seem manipulative or controlling or proof of something wrong with me. I want us to build our own life, I said instead, looking at Sarah. I want us to make our own choices. I want our marriage to be about us, not about your mother's expectations or my pride or any of it. Just us. We can't do it alone, Sarah said softly. We need help. Family helps family. That's how it works. Not like this. Not with someone who has a key to our home and uses it whenever she wants. Not with someone who makes decisions for us, about us, without asking. I won't apologize for caring about my daughter, Patricia said coldly. I'm not asking you to apologize for caring. I'm asking you to back off. The silence that followed was arctic. Patricia stood up, smoothing her skirt with precise movements. Sarah, I think you should come stay with me for a few days. Give you both some space to think about what you really want. No, I said. Sarah, don't. But Sarah was already standing, already moving toward the bedroom to pack a bag. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we do need space. I watched my wife walk away from me, following her mother's suggestion without even a glance back. Watched Patricia smile that small, satisfied smile that told me she'd won this round. And I stood in the middle of an apartment that wasn't mine, in a life that didn't feel like mine, and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so fast. When they left Sarah with an overnight bag, Patricia with her arm around her daughter's shoulders, I sat on that perfectly staged couch and pulled out my phone, looked at the deed to my apartment, at proof of my independence, my success, my escape plan. Then I pulled up a real estate website and started looking at the listing I'd created months ago, before the wedding, when I'd briefly considered selling, then changed my mind. The apartment was worth more now. Market was good. I could list it tomorrow, sell within weeks, and no one would ever have to know I'd kept this secret. I could let Patricia win, let her be right about me, let everything she believed about my inadequacy become the truth, or I could fight back. I sat there until the sun set, until the apartment grew dark around me, until I'd made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to sell. I was going to move in. The decision felt right for exactly 12 hours. Then, Sarah came home. She walked into the apartment, Patricia's apartment, at noon the next day, looking exhausted and fragile in a way that made my chest ache. Her eyes were puffy, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. She looked like she hadn't slept. Neither had I. Hey, she said softly, setting her bag down by the door. Hey, it's not work. We stood there, an ocean of silence between us, in a living room that suddenly felt too small. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my head during the sleepless night. How I'd tell her about the apartment, how I'd explain everything, how we'd laugh about the absurdity of it all, and move forward together. But looking at her now, at the way she was holding herself like she might break, all my practiced words evaporated. "I'm sorry," we both said at the same time. That almost made us smile. Almost. "You first," Sarah said, moving to sit on the couch. I sat beside her, careful to leave space between us. "I'm sorry for walking out, for not communicating, for making you worry." I took a breath. "For all of it. I'm sorry, too, for what I said, for calling my mother, for," she trailed off, twisting her wedding ring around her finger, "for not seeing your side of things." Hope flickered in my chest. "Yeah? Mother and I talked. A lot. And she helped me see. The hope died that we're in different places, emotionally, financially, in terms of what we want from life." Sarah's voice was shaking now. She made me realize that maybe we rushed into this. Maybe we didn't really know each other well enough. "Your mother said that. It wasn't a question." She's right, though, isn't she? 6 months from meeting to married, we were caught up in the romance of it all. But we never discussed the real things. Money, family dynamics, expectations. "We can discuss them now. We can figure this out." "Can we?" She finally looked at me, and her eyes were full of tears. "Because it feels like we want fundamentally different things. You want independence from my family. I want them in my life. You want to struggle and earn everything yourselves. I don't see the point in suffering when there's help available. Those aren't small differences. They're not insurmountable either." I reached for her hand, and this time she let me take it. "Sarah, I love you. I married you because I love you. Not your mother, not your family's money, not any of it. Just you. But you don't love my family, and they're part of me. They always will be. I don't hate your family. I just want boundaries." Boundaries feel like rejection to me, like you're pushing away the people who matter most. She squeezed my hand, then let go. "Mother thinks—" "Please stop telling me what your mother thinks," I interrupted, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. "What do times you times think? What do times you times want?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I think I want to feel like my husband trusts me, like we're a team. But lately, it feels like you're keeping things from me. Like there's this wall between us that gets higher every day." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Just a feeling. Like you're not fully here, not fully committed. Like part of you is somewhere else." She was right, of course. Part of me times was times somewhere else, 8 blocks east, in an apartment she didn't know existed. But she didn't mean it literally. She meant emotionally. And that was true too. This was it. The moment. I could tell her everything right now. Show her that I did trust her. That there was no wall. That I'd just made a stupid mistake that spiraled out of control. "Sarah, there's something I need to—" My phone rang. The hospital. I looked at the screen, then at Sarah. "I'm sorry. I have to take this. We're short-staffed, and—" "Take it," she said, her voice flat. "I'll wait." I answered. It was Linda, the charge nurse. "I know it's your day off, but we've got 3 call-outs and a multi-vehicle accident coming in. We're desperate." I looked at Sarah, at her expectant face, at this moment that was slipping away. "I can't. I'm dealing with something at home. Jake, please, 2 hours. That's all I need, just until the next shift arrives." 2 hours. I could do 2 hours, then come back and have this conversation properly. Maybe the break would even help give us both time to think. "Okay, 2 hours. Thank you. You're a lifesaver." I hung up and turned to Sarah, already seeing the disappointment on her face. "I'm sorry. Emergency. But I'll be back in 2 hours. And we can finish this conversation. We can talk about everything." "Everything," she repeated. "Everything. I promise." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. "Okay." 2 hours. I kissed her forehead, grabbed my jacket, and left. As the door closed behind me, I had the distinct feeling that I'd just made the worst decision of my life. The hospital was chaos. The accident had been bad, a semi-truck and 4 cars on the interstate. We had 7 patients in various states of critical, and the ER was a controlled hurricane of movement and urgency. I lost myself in it, in the vital signs, and the medications, and the precise choreography of emergency medicine. This was something I knew how to do. This was a problem I could actually solve. 2 hours became 3, then 4. Every time I tried to leave, something else happened. A patient coding, a family member needing support, another ambulance arriving. By the time I finally made it out, it was nearly 6 p.m. I'd been gone for 6 hours. Sarah called as I was walking to the subway. I answered immediately. "I'm so sorry. It was worse than they thought. I'm on my way now." "Don't bother," she said, and her voice was ice. "Sarah, 6 hours, Jake. You said 2 hours, and you were gone for 6. "I know, but it was an emergency. Multiple trauma patients. I couldn't just leave." "You can never just leave. There's always something more important than me." "That's not fair. People were dying. And our marriage is dying. But apparently that's less urgent." She took a shaky breath. "I waited for you for 4 hours. I sat here waiting, thinking we were going to finally talk, finally work through this, and you just didn't come back. I'm coming back now. I'm literally on my way. I'm not here." My stomach dropped. "Where are you?" "At Mother's, where I should have stayed." Her voice broke. "I can't do this anymore, Jake. I can't be married to someone who's never actually present." "Who runs away to work, or just disappears, or keeps secrets." "I don't keep secrets." The lie tasted bitter. "Don't you? Because I feel like I don't know you at all anymore. Maybe I never did." "Sarah, please, just wait for me. I'll come to your mother's, and we can." "No, I need space. Real space. Time to think about what I want." "What you want, or what your mother wants." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I'll call you," she said finally. "In a few days, when I'm ready." "Sarah, wait." But she'd already hung up. I stood in the subway station, commuters flowing around me like water around a stone, and felt my marriage crumbling in real time. David found me at a bar near the hospital at 9 p.m. I'd texted him my location after the 3rd whiskey, some part of my brain still functioning enough to know I shouldn't be alone. He slid onto the stool next to me and ordered a beer. "Okay, tell me." I told him everything. The fight, the almost confession, the phone call, Sarah leaving. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You fucked up," he said finally. "I know." "No, I mean you really fucked up. You had the perfect opening to tell her about the apartment, and instead, you went to work. People needed me. Sarah needed you. Your marriage needed you. But you chose the one thing that felt safe and familiar and in your control." He took a long drink. "You self-sabotaged. I didn't." "Yes, you did. Because telling Sarah the truth is scary. It means vulnerability. It means potentially losing her. It means confronting all the lies you've told. So instead, you ran away to the hospital where you're competent and needed, and don't have to deal with your actual problems." I wanted to argue, but he was right. Of course he was right. "So what do I do now?" "You tell her. Tonight. You go to Patricia's place. You ask to talk to Sarah alone, and you tell her everything. She said she needs space. And you need to save your marriage. Space can wait." David finished his beer and stood up. "Come on, I'll go with you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because you're my friend, and you're spiraling, and left to your own devices, you'll sit here drowning in whiskey and self-pity until it's too late." He pulled me to my feet. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you actually do this instead of chickening out again." Patricia's building was in the Upper East Side, one of those pre-war beauties with a doorman and marble floors and an elevator that required a key. The doorman called up, listened for a moment, then shook his head. Mrs. Montgomery says Miss Sarah isn't receiving visitors. I'm her husband, I said. I'm aware, sir. My instructions stand. David put a hand on my shoulder before I could argue. Can you at least tell Sarah that Jake is here? That he really needs to speak with her? The doorman made another call, another headshake. I'm sorry, gentlemen, you'll need to leave. We stood on the sidewalk outside, looking up at the building's ornate facade. Somewhere up there, Sarah was probably crying, and her mother was probably telling her that this proved she was right about me. Text her, David suggested. Tell her you're outside. Tell her you need 5 minutes. I pulled out my phone and typed, *, I'm outside your mom's building. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I have something important to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago. *. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, *. Not tonight. I can't do this tonight. *. Then, when? *. No response. The dots didn't even appear. She's not going to see you, David said gently. Not tonight. Patricia's probably convinced her you're unstable or dangerous or something. So what? I just give up? No. You regroup. You figure out your next move. You stopped, looking at something over my shoulder. Shit. I turned. Patricia was coming out of the building, wrapped in a cashmere coat, her expression pure fury. You have a lot of nerve coming here, she said, her voice low and venomous. Haven't you done enough damage? I need to talk to my wife. Your wife doesn't want to talk to you. She's exhausted, she's heartbroken, and she needs peace, which you seem incapable of providing. With all due respect, Mrs. Montgomery, this is between Sarah and me. Nothing about your marriage is just between you and her. Not when your actions affect my daughter's well-being. Not when your neglect and emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation? I laughed, sharp and bitter. That's rich coming from someone who uses her key to rearrange our apartment and calls her daughter every time we have an argument. Patricia's eyes narrowed. I support my daughter. I always have. And I will continue to do so, especially when she's married to someone who clearly isn't mature enough for the responsibility. You don't support her. You control her. You've inserted yourself into every aspect of our lives, and you've convinced Sarah that it's normal, that it's love. But it's not. It's suffocating. How dare you? How dare times you, *, I shot back. Months of frustration finally breaking free. You've undermined our marriage from day one. You offered us your apartment, then used it as leverage. You made Sarah doubt herself, doubt us, doubt everything, except you and your opinions and your way of doing things. I offered you a home when you couldn't provide one. I've given you opportunities you couldn't earn on your own. I've been nothing but generous, and this is how you repay me? With accusations and hostility? I don't need your generosity, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. I have my own apartment, one I bought myself 3 years ago. We never needed yours. The silence that followed was absolute. Patricia stared at me, her expression shifting from shock to calculation to cold, hard fury. You own an apartment, yes. And you let Sarah believe otherwise. You let her think you needed my help, my apartment, my money. She stepped closer, and I could see the rage in her eyes. You manipulated my daughter into thinking you were something you're not. That's not. Does she know? Does Sarah know about this apartment? I couldn't answer. My silence was answer enough. Patricia smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. I see. So you've been lying to her. For how long? Since before the wedding? I didn't lie. I just didn't mention. That's what liars always say. She pulled out her phone. Sarah needs to know about this. Immediately. Wait, I said, panic flooding through me. Let me tell her, please. Not like this. You've had months to tell her. You chose not to. Why should I give you another chance? Because she's my wife, and she deserves to hear it from me. She's my daughter, and she deserves to know that she's married to a fraud. Patricia's fingers moved across her screen. You wanted to play games with my family? Congratulations. You lose. David grabbed my arm as I lunged forward, held me back as Patricia calmly typed and sent. Don't, you'll just make it worse. How could it possibly be worse? As if in answer, my phone rang. Sarah. I answered with shaking hands. Sarah, I can explain. You have an apartment? Her voice was hollow, shocked. This whole time, you had your own place, and you let me think. You let me believe. I was going to tell you, today. That's what I was trying to say before I had to go to work. That's what you were going to say, not, I love you, or, let's work this out, but, hey, by the way, I've been lying to you since before we got married? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. I tried. I really tried. Standing on that sidewalk with David and Patricia watching, I explained about the test, about wanting her to love me, for me, about how it spiraled out of control, about how every day that passed made it harder to tell the truth. When I finished, Sarah was quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. You tested me, she said finally. Our entire relationship was a test. No. At first, it was just, and I failed, didn't I? Because I cared that you didn't have much money. Because I accepted my mother's help. Because I didn't meet your standards of what a good person should be. That's not what I meant. And then you married me anyway, even though I'd failed your test. You married me and moved into my mother's apartment and kept your own place secret like what? A backup plan? An escape route? Sarah, please. I need you to stop talking now. Her voice was breaking. I need you to stop explaining and justifying and making excuses. I need you to leave me alone. Flast, I need you to leave me alone. Can we just... No, we can't. There's no we right now. There's just you and your lies, and me trying to figure out if anything about our marriage was real. My love for you is real. That was always real. Was it? Because love doesn't lie. Love doesn't test. Love doesn't keep secrets and make unilateral decisions and treat your partner like they're some kind of experiment. She was crying now. I could hear it. I thought I knew you. I thought we were building a life together. But you were just, what, playing house? Seeing how long you could keep up the charade? No, I was trying to protect. Don't say you were protecting me. You were protecting yourself, your pride, your ego, your need to feel superior. Her breath hitched. I'm done. With this conversation, with this marriage, with all of it. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, the word divorce echoing in my head like a death knell. I'm sorry, Patricia said, and she almost sounded sincere. But you brought this on yourself. She turned and walked back into her building, leaving me on the sidewalk with David and the ruins of my marriage. Come on, David said quietly. Let's get you out of here. She wants a divorce. I know. I destroyed everything. Yeah, you did. He steered me toward the subway. But standing here won't fix it. Let's go. We rode the train in silence. Got off at my stop, the stop near my apartment, my secret, my stupid mistake that had cost me everything. David came up with me, made sure I got inside okay, then left me alone with my thoughts and my guilt and my empty apartment that had never felt more like a prison. I sat on that uncomfortable couch and pulled out my phone, looked at Sarah's contact information, at her photo from our wedding day, at the hundreds of texts and calls that documented our relationship. Then I scrolled back further, to the messages from before we met, back when I was setting up the test that would ultimately destroy us. I'd been so sure I was being smart, being careful, protecting myself from gold diggers and users and people who wanted me for the wrong reasons. But in protecting myself, I'd become exactly the kind of person I'd been afraid of finding. A liar, a manipulator, someone who used money and secrets as weapons. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I opened it automatically. Still numb, it was from Sarah's lawyer, already, with a subject line that made my stomach drop: petition for legal separation and dissolution of marriage. She hadn't been kidding. She was done. I sat in my apartment, my empty, expensive, worthless apartment, and watched my marriage end in real time, delivered via email at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And I had no one to blame but myself. The lawyer's email sat in my inbox like a ticking bomb. I read it 17 times before dawn, each word driving deeper into my chest. Irreconcilable differences, division of assets, spousal support considerations, the cold, clinical language of a marriage being dismantled. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Instead, I sat at my kitchen counter, the one Sarah had never seen, and tried to figure out how everything had gone so catastrophically wrong in less than 48 hours. At 6 a.m., I gave up on pretending I might rest and went for a run. The December air was brutal, slicing through my lungs, but the pain felt appropriate, deserved, even. My phone rang as I rounded Central Park. Marcus. "Tell me the internet is lying," he said without preamble. I stopped running, bent over with my hands on my knees. "What? Please tell me my cousin didn't just post on Instagram that her daughter is divorcing her husband of 6 months because he's been living a double life." My blood ran cold. She posted what? Oh, it gets better. Patricia's spinning quite the narrative. You're apparently a con artist who tricked Sarah into marriage while secretly hoarding money and living in a bachelor pad. There's heavy implication that you might have been cheating. The comments are, "He trailed off. They're not kind." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened Instagram. I didn't follow Patricia, but her account was public. There it was, posted 2 hours ago. A photo of Sarah from their charity gala last month, looking radiant in a designer gown, with a caption that made my stomach turn. Asterisk, my heart breaks for my beautiful daughter, who married a man she thought was struggling to make ends meet, only to discover he's been deceiving her since day one. He owned property he never mentioned, lived a separate life, and convinced her his love was real while conducting experiments on her character. Please send Sarah your love and prayers during this difficult time. Number truth always comes out. Number protect your daughters. Number divorce announcement asterisk. 2,000 likes. 400 comments. And counting. Jesus Christ, I whispered. She's destroying you, Marcus said. This has been shared to several society gossip accounts. Your name is attached. Photos of you are circulating. People from the hospital are commenting. I have to fix this. How? She's Patricia Montgomery. She has 50,000 followers and the backing of New York's social elite. What do you have? An Instagram account with 12 posts and a profile picture from 2019? He was right. I was outgunned and outmatched. I need to talk to Sarah. Explain my side before. Before what? Before everyone in New York decides you're a sociopathic con man? Too late. Patricia's already painted that picture. Marcus sighed. Look, I love my cousin, but she's vicious when she thinks someone has hurt her family. She did the same thing to Sarah's ex-boyfriend in college, spread rumors that destroyed his reputation. The guy had to transfer schools. What am I supposed to do? Get a lawyer, a good one, and maybe consider some kind of public statement. Your silence is letting Patricia control the narrative. I thanked him and hung up, then immediately called the only lawyer I knew, my landlord's brother who'd helped me with the apartment purchase. He agreed to meet me that afternoon. Then I did something stupid. I called Sarah. She didn't answer. I tried again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I left a voicemail. Sarah, please. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But your mother is posting things about me online. Things that aren't true. I never cheated. I never conned you. I made a terrible mistake, yes, but it wasn't malicious. It wasn't calculated. It was just stupid. Really, really stupid. I took a breath. Please call me back, or at least ask your mother to take down the post. This is getting out of control. She didn't call back. By noon, I'd been recognized 3 times at the hospital. Linda, the charge nurse, pulled me aside. "Is it true?" she asked gently. "About the apartment? It's complicated. Jake, people are talking, and some of what they're saying." She trailed off. "Dr. Morrison wants to see you in his office. Now." Dr. Morrison was the ER director, a stern man in his 60s, who'd always intimidated me slightly. I'd never been called to his office before. He didn't waste time. "I'm going to ask you directly, and I need an honest answer. Did you lie about your financial situation when you applied for the hospital's low-income housing assistance program?" My heart stopped. I'd forgotten about that. When I'd first started, before I met Sarah, I'd applied for a program that helped residents with housing costs. I'd been approved for a small monthly stipend based on my stated financial situation, a situation that didn't include owning property. I couldn't find words. "That's a yes, doctor." Morrison's expression was grave. "Jake, that's fraud. You took money meant for residents who genuinely needed it while sitting on an asset worth at least $750,000. I didn't think. "No, you didn't. And now the hospital is getting calls from donors who saw your mother-in-law's post. They're questioning our vetting process. They want to know how we let a fraud slip through." He rubbed his temples. "I'm going to have to put you on administrative leave pending an investigation." "What?" "No, please. I need this job. It's all I have left. You should have thought about that before you lied on official documents." His voice softened slightly. "Look, I understand that personal lives get messy, but this is a professional issue now. You'll continue to receive pay during the investigation, but you can't work clinical shifts until it's resolved. I'm sorry." I left his office in a daze. David found me in the locker room, staring at my phone. "I heard," he said. "Man, I'm sorry. She's destroying my entire life. My marriage, my job, my reputation, all because I made one stupid decision 3 years ago." "Well, technically you made that decision every day for 3 years by not telling Sarah the truth. But yeah, Patricia's response is nuclear." He sat beside me. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Fight back? But how? She has the power, the platform, the connections. I'm just a resident who fucked up." "You're not just anything. You're a good doctor, a good person who made a bad choice. That matters." "Does it? Because right now it feels like none of that matters. The only thing people see is the lie." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk. "This is Julia Montgomery, Sarah's sister. We need to talk. Coffee, 2 p.m. at Café Grumpy in Chelsea." Asterisk. I showed David. "Sarah's sister wants to meet. That's interesting. She's usually Switzerland in family drama. Should I go?" "Definitely. She might be your only ally in the Montgomery family right now." Julia was waiting for me at a corner table. 2 coffees already ordered. She looked like Sarah. Same dark hair, same delicate features, but where Sarah was soft and warm, Julia had an edge to her. She worked in finance, Marcus had mentioned once, lived in London, but was visiting for the holidays. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "Thanks for reaching out. I wasn't sure anyone in your family would want to talk to me." "Mother doesn't know I'm here. Neither does Sarah." She pushed a coffee toward me. "I saw the Instagram post, and I know my mother. This isn't about protecting Sarah. It's about controlling the narrative and punishing you for defying her." "I'm not sure I'd call what I did defying her." "You told her off on the sidewalk. Marcus heard about it from the doorman. You called her controlling and suffocating, and you told her you didn't need her generosity." Julia smiled slightly. "No one talks to Patricia Montgomery like that, especially not someone she considers beneath her." "She thinks I'm beneath her?" "She thinks everyone's beneath her. But yes, especially you. A resident with student loans who grew up middle class, you might as well be from another planet in Mother's world." She leaned forward. "Here's what you need to understand. Mother is going to fight dirty. She's already started. That post is just the opening salvo. She's probably reaching out to colleagues, spreading stories, making sure everyone knows her version of events." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I love my sister, but I also know she's being manipulated right now. Mother is in her ear 24/7, telling her what to think, what to feel, how to react. Sarah can't see clearly. Julia took a sip of her coffee. I read the email from Sarah's lawyer. Did you know Mother hired him? It's her attorney, not Sarah's choice. Of course it is. The petition is aggressive. It's designed to hurt you financially and emotionally. Mother wants you to sign it immediately out of shame and desperation. Don't. I'm not trying to drag this out. I don't want Sarah's money. It's not about the money. It's about not letting Mother steamroll you. Julia pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. This is from the family group chat. Mother sent it this morning. The message was from Patricia. Asterisk Sarah is well rid of him. I always knew he was after her money. Now we have proof. I've already spoken to James about making sure the divorce is swift and that Jake gets nothing. He deserves nothing. Asterisk. I felt sick. Sarah didn't respond to that. Julia pointed out, she hasn't responded to any of Mother's messages today, which either means she's completely shutting down or she's starting to question things. What should I do? First, get your own lawyer. Not James, he works for Mother. Someone independent who can protect your interests. Second, write down everything. The whole story, from the beginning. Your perspective, your motivations, your mistakes. Be honest. Don't try to spin it. Why? Because eventually, Sarah's going to want to hear your side. Right now, she can't. But when the initial shock wears off, she's going to have questions. And you need to be ready with answers that are real and vulnerable and true. Julia finished her coffee. Third, don't engage with Mother's social media campaign. Don't defend yourself publicly. It'll just feed the beast. Let your lawyer handle the legal stuff. And trust that people who actually know you will see through the bullshit. People at my hospital are already questioning me. I've been put on administrative leave. For what? I told her about the housing assistance fraud issue. Julia's expression darkened. Mother probably called them. She has connections on the hospital's board. She pulled out her phone again. Let me make some calls. I know people too. You'd do that? I'm doing this for Sarah, not you. She needs to make this decision with a clear head, not under Mother's influence. That means evening the playing field. She stood up. One more thing. That apartment you own. Where is it? I told her the address. Nice neighborhood. Worth about what? I paid $675,000 3 years ago. Probably worth $800,000 now. Maybe more. And your mortgage? About $450,000 left. Julia nodded, calculating. That's decent equity. Are you current on payments? Yes. I've never missed one. Good. Don't let it go into default. Mother will use that against you too. Claim you're financially irresponsible. She gathered her things. I have to go. Mother thinks I'm shopping. But Jake, I meant what I said. Write everything down. The whole truth. You're going to need it. She left, and I sat alone with my cold coffee, wondering if Julia was an ally or just gathering intelligence for her family. I spent the rest of the afternoon with the lawyer Marcus had recommended, a sharp woman named Catherine Ross who specialized in family law. She listened to my story without judgment, took copious notes, and then gave me the reality check I needed. You're in a difficult position, she said. The housing assistance fraud is serious. Even if you didn't intend to defraud the hospital, technically, you did. That could result in criminal charges if they decide to pursue it. Criminal? Unlikely, but possible. More likely, they'll require you to pay back what you received, which based on your timeline would be around $30,000 with interest. You'll also probably face professional consequences, a mark on your record, difficulty getting hired elsewhere. I put my head in my hands. This keeps getting worse. It gets worse before it gets better in these situations, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to be completely transparent and cooperative with the hospital's investigation. We're going to show them you made an error in judgment, not a calculated fraud. We're going to offer to repay every penny immediately. I don't have $30,000 just sitting around. You have equity in your apartment. You can take out a small home equity line of credit if needed. The point is showing good faith. She flipped through her notes. As for the divorce, I need you to understand something. In New York, This is going to be relatively straightforward, since you've been married less than a year. The question is how much you're willing to concede to make it go away quickly versus how much you want to fight. I don't want to fight. I just want to not be destroyed in the process. Then we focus on a clean break. No spousal support. You haven't been married long enough for that to be a serious issue anyway. Division of assets should be simple since you kept your finances mostly separate. The apartment is yours, predating the marriage. Sarah can keep her mother's apartment and whatever assets she brought in. What about the stuff in her mother's apartment? Our things? Make a list of what matters to you. We'll request it be returned. But Jake, be realistic. Most of that is probably replaceable, and fighting over furniture isn't worth the legal fees. I thought about our wedding photos, some books, my grandmother's watch that I'd left in the nightstand. There are a few things that have sentimental value. We'll ask for those specifically, but expect resistance. Patricia Montgomery seems like the type to use possessions as leverage. We talked for another hour, going over strategies and timelines and costs. By the time I left Catherine's office, I had a plan. It wasn't a great plan, but it was something. I also had a bill for $5,000 as a retainer. My savings account was getting lighter by the minute. That evening, I took Julia's advice and started writing. Everything. The whole story from the beginning. Asterisk. I bought the apartment when I was 28, a year before I started my residency. It was a good investment and a dream come true, my own place in Manhattan. I was proud of it, proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. Asterisk. Asterisk. When I met Sarah, I didn't tell her about it right away because I wanted to know she liked me, not for my assets. I dated women before who changed their behavior when they found out I owned property in the city. I thought I was being smart. Asterisk. Asterisk. But what started as a brief test became a pattern of omission. Every day I didn't tell her made it harder to tell her. I was ashamed of the lie, scared of her reaction, and convinced that if I just waited for the right moment, I could explain it all and she'd understand. Asterisk. Asterisk. I was wrong. There was no right moment. There was only the truth, and I waited too long to tell it. Asterisk. Asterisk. I never meant to hurt her. I never intended for any of this to happen. I fell in love with Sarah. Real, genuine love, and I wanted to build a life with her. But I built it on a foundation of lies, and now the whole thing has collapsed. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect understanding. I just want Sarah to know that my love for her was real, even if everything else was tainted by my deception. She deserved better than what I gave her. She deserved honesty from the start. Asterisk. I wrote for hours, until my hands cramped and my eyes burned. When I finally finished, I had 12 pages of confession and context and regret. I didn't know if Sarah would ever read it. But at least it existed. At least the truth, my truth, was down on paper. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Asterisk. Check Patricia's Instagram. She posted again. Asterisk. With a sense of dread, I opened the app. The new post was a photo of Sarah as a little girl, maybe 5 or 6, wearing a princess costume and smiling at the camera. The caption read, Asterisk. This little girl grew up believing in fairy tales and happy endings. She trusted too easily, loved too fully, and saw the best in everyone. Today, I watched her heart break when she learned that the man she married has been lying to her since the day they met. I couldn't protect her from this pain, but I can make sure he never hurts her again. Number mother's duty. Number protecting my baby asterisk. The comments were even worse than before. Hundreds of people calling me a monster, a fraud, a predator. Some were speculating about other lies I must have told. Others were sharing the post with comments like, "This is why you should always do a background check before marriage," and red flags everywhere. How did she not see it? I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I did what Catherine had advised. I documented it. Screenshot, timestamp, saved to a folder. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. At midnight, exhausted and emotionally drained, I finally lay down on my bed. The sheets still smelled like the detergent Sarah used. She'd done laundry here once, months ago, when we'd spent a weekend at her mother's place and she'd brought some of our clothes back to wash. She'd been here, in this apartment, and I'd let her believe it was David's place, somewhere we were crashing temporarily while looking for our own home. Another lie. God, how many lies had I told? My phone rang. Sarah. I answered so fast I nearly dropped it. Sarah, don't talk. Just listen. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for hours. I'm calling because my lawyer said I should, to establish that we're attempting communication before moving forward with the divorce. I'm calling because Julia said I owe you a chance to explain, even though I don't think I do. I'm calling because even after everything, some stupid part of me still wants to hear your voice, Sarah. I said don't talk. She took a shaky breath. I don't know who you are. The man I married would never lie to me for months, would never test me like some kind of experiment, would never let me humiliate myself by accepting my mother's help when we didn't need it. So either you were never that man, or I never really knew you at all. You knew me. You know me. The feelings were real. Were they? Because how can I trust anything you say now? How can I trust that you loved me when everything was built on deception? She was crying now. You let me plan our future in an apartment you knew we'd never keep. You let me thank my mother for her generosity while secretly resenting her. You let me worry about money and budget and sacrifice. And the whole time you were, what? Laughing at me? Feeling superior? No, never. I was trying to protect. If you say you were trying to protect me, I swear to God I will hang up and never speak to you again. Her voice broke. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting your ego, your pride, your need to feel like you'd earned me honestly. She wasn't wrong. Every word was like a knife, sharp and accurate and deserved. You're right, I said quietly. About all of it. I was selfish and stupid and cowardly. I told myself it was about testing your character, but really, it was about protecting myself from getting hurt. And in the process, I hurt you worse than anyone else ever could have. Silence on the other end. Then, I asked Julia to meet with you today, to see if you were remorseful or just trying to save face. She said you seemed genuinely broken up about this. I am. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For everything. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't change the fact that our entire relationship was a lie. Not all of it. My love for you was real. That part was always real. How can I believe that when you lied about everything else? She sobbed once, harsh and painful. I can't do this. I can't talk to you. Every word just makes it hurt more. Then don't hang up. Just let me say one thing, and then I'll leave you alone. She didn't respond, but she didn't hang up either. I wrote everything down. The whole story, from my perspective. All the reasons and excuses and moments where I should have told you but didn't. It's honest, and it's ugly, and it doesn't paint me in a good light, but it's the truth. Finally, I took a breath. I'm going to give it to Julia. You can read it when you're ready, or never. But it exists. The whole truth exists, and you deserve to have it. More silence. Then, so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. Okay. I love you, Sarah. I know that doesn't mean much right now, but it's true. I love you. And I'm sorry I didn't show you that through my actions. I'm sorry I failed you. Goodbye, Jake, she whispered. The line went dead. I lay in the darkness of my apartment, clutching my phone, and let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare began. Tomorrow, I'd give Julia my written confession. Tomorrow, I'd start dealing with the hospital investigation. Tomorrow, I'd begin the process of putting my life back together. But tonight, I grieved for the marriage I'd destroyed and the woman I'd lost. Tonight, I let myself feel the full weight of my mistakes, and it was crushing. The hospital investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, I was sitting across from a 3-person panel in a windowless conference room, explaining how I'd forgotten about the housing assistance when I'd applied for it, how I'd been overwhelmed with starting residency, how it had seemed like such a small thing at the time. They didn't buy it. Not really. But Catherine had coached me well, and I had already written a check for $31,847.52, the full amount I'd received plus interest, which sat on the table between us like an offering. "Dr. Chen," said Dr. Morrison, who headed the panel, "your willingness to make immediate restitution is noted. However, this situation raises serious concerns about your judgment and integrity." "I understand," I said. "I made a mistake. I should have been more careful with my application, and I should have notified the program when my financial situation changed." "Changed how?" asked Dr. Susan Walsh, head of the residency program. "Your income didn't change. You were still making a residence salary." "What changed?" This was the tricky part. Catherine had warned me about it. "I got married," I said carefully. "My wife's family is well off. The dynamic of my financial situation shifted, even though my income remained the same." "But you continued to accept the housing assistance for 3 months after your marriage," Dr. Walsh pointed out. "Why?" "Because I was too caught up in maintaining my lies to think clearly about anything else. Because my whole life had become a web of deception that I couldn't untangle. Because I was an idiot." "I should have notified the program immediately," I said instead. "There's no excuse for not doing so. It was an oversight, and I take full responsibility." The third panel member, someone from the hospital's legal department whose name I hadn't caught, leaned forward. "Dr. Chen, we've received several communications regarding your situation. Some from concerned donors, some from other parties. There's been considerable pressure to terminate your residency." My stomach dropped. "I see. However," Dr. Morrison continued, "your record prior to this incident has been exemplary. Your patient care is excellent, your colleagues speak highly of you, and you've shown genuine remorse and made full restitution." He exchanged glances with the others. "We're prepared to offer you a path forward, but it comes with conditions." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "You'll be placed on probation for the remainder of your residency. Any future ethical violations will result in immediate termination. You'll complete additional training on professional ethics and financial disclosure requirements, and there will be a formal reprimand in your file." "I accept," I said immediately. "Thank you. I won't let you down again." "See that you don't, Doctor," Walsh said, but her expression wasn't unkind. "You're a good doctor, Jake. Don't throw away your career over poor judgment in your personal life." After the meeting, I sat in my car in the parking garage and called Catherine. "They went for it," I told her. "Probation, ethics training, formal reprimand. But I keep my job." "That's a win," she said. "Better than I expected, honestly. Patricia Montgomery must not have as much pull with the hospital board as she thinks." Or Julia's calls helped. Either way, that's one crisis partially resolved. Now let's talk about the divorce. We'd been negotiating through lawyers for the past week. Sarah's attorney, Patricia's attorney, had sent over a revised petition that was slightly less aggressive than the first one, but still painted me as the villain in every possible way. "I have a counter-proposal drafted," Catherine said. "It's fair, reasonable, and protects your interests while acknowledging your role in the marriage's breakdown. I'm sending it over today. Will they accept it?" "Probably not the first version. These things go back and forth. But Jake, I need to ask you something. How much do you actually want to fight for this marriage?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you keep saying you want a clean break, but you haven't actually filed anything yourself. You're responding to Sarah's petition, but you haven't initiated divorce proceedings. And you wrote her a 12-page letter that reads more like a love confession than a legal defense." She paused. "So I'm asking, do you want the divorce, or do you want her back?" I sat with that question for a long moment, watching the concrete pillars of the parking garage blur slightly. "I want her back," I admitted, "but I know that's not realistic. I destroyed her trust. I hurt her in ways I can't undo. The best thing I can do for her is let her go." "That's very noble," Catherine said dryly. "But it doesn't answer my question. Do you want to fight for the marriage or not?" "What would fighting look like?" Dies 9. contesting the divorce on the grounds that it's premature, requesting marriage counseling as a condition of dissolution, making it clear through legal channels that you believe the marriage is worth saving. She sighed. Look, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm a divorce attorney. My job is to get you through this with minimal damage. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell when someone's heart isn't in the divorce. Yours isn't. Even if I wanted to fight, Sarah's made her decision. She won't talk to me except through lawyers. She's living with her mother, who's poisoning her against me every chance she gets. What's the point? The point is that you have rights too. You don't have to just roll over because you feel guilty. You can say, I made mistakes, but I love my wife, and I want a chance to fix this. You can make her actually confront whether she wants to throw away the marriage or just wants to punish you. I thought about Sarah's voice on the phone, broken and hurt. I thought about Patricia's Instagram posts and the venom in her emails. I thought about Julia's quiet support and Marcus's warnings. If I fight, I said slowly, it'll just drag things out, make everything worse, hurt Sarah more. And hurt Sarah more, hurt Sarah more. Or it might force an actual conversation instead of a legal proceeding. Your call, but make it consciously. Don't just drift into divorce because you think you deserve it. After we hung up, I sat in the car for another 20 minutes, wrestling with the question, did I deserve to fight for Sarah? Did I have the right to ask her to reconsider after what I'd done? My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. Asterisk, gave Sarah your letter. She read it. No response yet, but she read it. That's something. Asterisk. It was something. A crack in the wall. Maybe. I drove home to my apartment, which no longer felt like home now that I wasn't pretending it belonged to someone else. The space felt hollow, a monument to my deception. There was a package waiting by my door. No return address, but I recognized Sarah's handwriting on the label. Inside were my things from her mother's apartment. My clothes, neatly folded, the books I'd left on the nightstand, a framed photo from our honeymoon, and, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, my grandmother's watch. No note, no explanation, just my belongings, returned like artifacts from a life that no longer existed. I picked up the wedding photo us on a beach in Turks and Caicos, laughing at something the photographer had said. Sarah's head was on my shoulder, her hand in mine. Both of us, looking deliriously happy. Had she been happy? Or had she been happy with a version of me that didn't exist? The question haunted me as I unpacked the box, putting away pieces of a marriage that was rapidly becoming past tense. 3 days later, I met Julia for lunch at a small Italian place in the West Village. She looked tired, like she'd been caught in the middle of something exhausting. Sarah's not doing well, she said without preamble. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. Mother has her convinced that you're a sociopath who planned this whole thing from the beginning. That's insane. I know. I've tried talking to her, but she's not listening. She's too hurt, too angry, too confused. Julia poked at her salad. She did read your letter, though. Multiple times, apparently. Did she say anything about it? To me? No. But I walked past her room last night and heard her crying while reading it again. So, it's affecting her, whether she'll admit it or not. I didn't know if that made me feel better or worse. Marcus told me you're considering fighting the divorce, Julia continued. Is that true? My lawyer suggested it. But I don't know if it's the right move. It might just make everything harder for Sarah. Or it might be exactly what she needs. Julia set down her fork. Look, I love my sister, but she has a tendency to make impulsive decisions when she's emotional. Getting married after 6 months was impulsive. Filing for divorce after 6 days might be too. 6 days is a long time to think about something like this. Not when you're living with Mother, who spent every one of those 6 days telling you how betrayed you should feel and how you need to end things immediately before you get hurt worse. Julia's expression was sharp. Sarah isn't thinking clearly. She's reacting, and Mother is controlling her reactions. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe someone needs to pump the brakes on this divorce and force Sarah to actually process what happened. instead of just running away from it. She leaned forward. "You fucked up, Jake. Massively. But you didn't cheat. You didn't abuse her. You didn't gamble away your savings or develop a secret drug habit. You lied about an apartment and let the lie grow until it poisoned everything. That's bad, but is it marriage-ending bad? Or is it work through it in therapy bad? Sarah seems to think it's marriage-ending. Sarah thinks what Mother tells her to think right now, and Mother wants this marriage over because you defied her. Not because you hurt Sarah, but because you challenged her authority." Julia's voice was bitter. "I've watched Mother manipulate Sarah our whole lives. This is just another instance of it. So what am I supposed to do? Fight the divorce and look like I'm trying to trap Sarah in a marriage she doesn't want? You're supposed to be honest about what you want and let Sarah make a real choice instead of a reactive one. Right now, she's not choosing to divorce you. She's choosing to please Mother and avoid pain. Those aren't the same thing." I thought about that as we finished lunch. About the difference between running away and moving forward. About whether I was being noble by accepting the divorce or cowardly by not fighting for what I wanted. "If I do this," I said slowly, "if I contest the divorce and ask for counseling, Patricia is going to lose her mind." "Oh, absolutely. She'll double down on the Instagram campaign, probably hire a PI to dig up dirt on you, make your life hell." Julia smiled slightly. "But she'll also show her hand. Sarah will see how far Mother's willing to go to control this situation, and that might wake her up, or it might push her further away. That's the risk. But Jake, you're losing her anyway. At least this way, you're losing her while fighting for the marriage instead of just surrendering." She had a point. That evening, I called Catherine and told her I wanted to contest the divorce. "Finally," she said, "I'll draft a response. We'll acknowledge your mistakes, but argue that the marriage deserves a chance at counseling before dissolution. We'll request a 6-month separation period with mandatory couples therapy before any divorce is finalized." Sarah's never going to agree to that. She doesn't have to agree. The judge can order it if there's evidence the marriage might be salvageable. And your letter, combined with the short duration of the marriage and lack of abuse or infidelity, gives us a decent argument. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. We're just changing tactics. The response was filed 2 days before Christmas. I knew because Marcus called me at 7 in the morning, his voice both amused and horrified. "Patricia just called my mother screaming about you," he said. "Something about how you're trying to trap Sarah in a marriage through legal manipulation and how she's going to make sure you pay for this. I think she might have actually used the phrase, destroy you utterly." Great. Exactly the Christmas spirit I was hoping for. Sarah knows. Patricia sent the family a group text about it. Sarah hasn't responded, but she's read it. What did the text say? Do you really want to know? Probably not, but tell me anyway. Marcus sighed. It said, Jake is now trying to force Sarah to stay married through legal means. He's filed a response contesting the divorce and demanding counseling. This is a classic abuser tactic trap. The victim. Isolate them. Make them doubt themselves. We need to show Sarah she has our full support in ending this marriage immediately. Please reach out to her with messages of love and encouragement. I closed my eyes. She called me an abuser. Yeah, which is bullshit, and everyone with a brain knows it. But it's Patricia, so she's going nuclear. He paused. Julia's furious, by the way. She sent a response telling Mother to stop manipulating the situation. There's a whole family war happening in the group chat right now. I'm sorry you're all caught in the middle of this. Please, Montgomery family drama is my favorite spectator sport. This is the most entertainment I've had in years. His voice softened. But seriously, Jake, are you sure about this? Fighting the divorce is going to make things a lot worse before they get better. I'm not sure about anything anymore. But I love Sarah, and I'm not ready to give up on us without at least trying to fix what I broke. Fair enough. Just be prepared for Patricia to come at you with everything she's got. She doesn't lose gracefully. He wasn't kidding. By that afternoon, Patricia had posted again on Instagram. Asterisk. Update on my daughter's situation. Her husband is now attempting to force her to stay in a marriage she no longer wants. through legal manipulation. He's demanding counseling and a 6-month waiting period, classic tactics used by manipulators to maintain control over their victims. Sarah is a strong woman who deserves better than this. Please continue to send her your support. Number support survivors, number legal abuse, number divorce coercion, *. The comments were brutal. Hundreds of people calling me controlling, abusive, manipulative. Some were suggesting Sarah should get a restraining order. Others were sharing stories of their own abusive exes who'd tried similar tactics. I documented it all. Screenshots, timestamps, saved to a folder that was growing disturbingly large. That evening, I got an email from Sarah's lawyer demanding I withdraw my response to the divorce petition. When I didn't respond within 2 hours, he sent another threatening to pursue sanctions for filing a frivolous motion. Catherine responded for me, Dr. Chen's response is neither frivolous nor manipulative. It's a good faith request for marital counseling before finalizing a divorce from a 6-month marriage. If your client is unwilling to attend even a single counseling session to discuss the state of her marriage, that's her choice, but Dr. Chen has every legal right to request it. The back and forth continued through lawyers for days. Christmas came and went in a blur of legal documents and increasingly hostile communications. I spent Christmas Eve alone in my apartment, eating Chinese takeout and reading through old text messages from Sarah, the ones from early in our relationship, when everything was new and uncomplicated and full of possibility. Just wanted to say, I had a wonderful time tonight. You make me laugh in ways I didn't know I needed. Thinking about you. Is that weird to say after only 3 dates? Whatever, I'm saying it anyway. I know we said we'd take things slow, but I'm pretty sure I'm falling for you. Like, real falling. The scary kind. You're the best thing that's happened to me in so long. I can't believe how lucky I am. Each message was a knife, reminding me what I'd had and what I'd lost through my own stupidity. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Jake? Sarah. My heart nearly stopped. Hi, I managed. I didn't expect to hear from you. I almost didn't call. Her voice was quiet, strained. But it's Christmas Eve, and you're alone, and I'm alone, and She trailed off. You're alone? Where's your family? At my aunt's house in Connecticut. I said I was too sick to go. Really, I just couldn't face another day of Mother telling me how I should feel, and Julia defending you, and everyone walking on eggshells around me. She took a shaky breath. I read your response to the divorce petition. I'm sorry if it upset you. I'm not trying to trap you or manipulate you. I know. I read your letter. All 12 pages. Multiple times. I know you're not trying to manipulate me. A long pause. But I'm still so angry at you, Jake. So hurt. I don't know if I can get past this. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want a chance to try to make it right. How? How do you make this right? You lied to me for months. You let me make decisions based on false information. You tested me like I was some kind of social experiment. Her voice broke. How do I trust you again? How do I believe anything you say? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe you can't. Maybe the trust is too broken to fix. But I think we owe it to ourselves to at least try before we give up completely. You mean we owe it to you? You're the one who wants counseling. You're the one fighting the divorce. No, we owe it to us. To the relationship we had before I fucked it up. To the love that was real, even if other things weren't. I took a breath. Sarah, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you in ways I can't undo. But I love you. I'm in love with you. And I think you might still love me too. Somewhere under all the hurt and anger. Silence on the other end. Then, so quietly. That's what makes this so hard. I do still love you. I hate that I do, but I can't just turn it off. My chest ached. So let's not throw it away without at least trying to save it. One counseling session. That's all I'm asking. If after one session you still want the divorce, I'll sign the papers and walk away. But please, Sarah, give us one real conversation with a professional mediator before we end this. More silence. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uncertain. One session, she finally said, but not with Mother's therapist or anyone she recommends. Someone neutral. Agreed. Completely neutral. And if I decide after that session that I still want the divorce, you'll sign the papers immediately. No more fighting. No more legal maneuvers. Yes. I promise. Another long pause. I'll think about it. That's all I can promise right now. I'll think about it. That's enough. Thank you. Merry Christmas, Jake, she whispered, and hung up. I sat in my dark apartment, holding my phone, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. It was fragile and terrifying and probably foolish, but it was there. Sarah was thinking about it. She hadn't said no. She'd called me on Christmas Eve because she was alone, and maybe, just maybe, she'd missed me. It wasn't much, but it was something. I looked at the wedding photo still sitting on my coffee table. Us on the beach, laughing, in love, uncomplicated. Maybe we couldn't go back to that. Maybe the lies had permanently tainted what we'd had. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new, something honest and real and stronger for having survived the worst. I didn't know if Sarah would agree to counseling. I didn't know if one session would be enough to bridge the chasm between us. I didn't know if Patricia would allow it, or if the damage was already too deep to repair. But for the first time since Sarah had discovered the truth, I had hope that our story might not be over yet. And on Christmas Eve, in my apartment that was no longer a secret, that hope felt like a gift. The counselor's office was in a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, deliberately neutral territory, not too close to either Sarah's mother's apartment or my place. Dr. Rebecca Torres came recommended by Catherine, who'd vetted her thoroughly to ensure she had no connections to the Montgomery family. She's good, Catherine had told me. Fair, experienced with high-conflict divorces, and she won't be swayed by money or influence. If anyone can give you two an honest shot at working through this, it's her. I arrived 15 minutes early, which meant I had 15 minutes to sit in the waiting room and contemplate every possible way this could go wrong. Sarah could refuse to show up. She could show up but refuse to engage. She could spend the entire session listing my failures, while Dr. Torres nodded sympathetically and confirmed that divorce was the only reasonable option. At precisely 3 o'clock, the door opened, and Sarah walked in. She looked different, thinner, like she hadn't been eating much. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual careful styling. No makeup. She was wearing jeans and a sweater I'd never seen before, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Sarah, I said, standing. Jake. Her voice was flat, carefully neutral. Before either of us could say anything else, an inner door opened, and Dr. Torres appeared. She was in her 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore slacks and a cardigan that looked comfortable rather than professional, which somehow made the whole situation feel less intimidating. Sarah, Jake, I'm Rebecca Torres. Please, come in. Her office was warm and unpretentious. 2 comfortable chairs facing each other at an angle, with Dr. Torres's chair positioned slightly off to the side. Bookshelves lined one wall, plants clustered near the window. A box of tissues sat on the small table between the chairs, which felt ominous. Thank you both for coming, Dr. Torres said once we were settled. I know this isn't easy for either of you. Before we begin, I want to establish some ground rules. This is a safe space for both of you to speak honestly. We're not here to assign blame or determine who's right or wrong. We're here to understand what happened, how you both feel about it, and whether there's a path forward, together or apart. Does that sound reasonable? We both nodded. Good. Now, I've reviewed the materials your attorneys provided, the basic facts of the situation, the timeline, the current legal proceedings, but I'd like to hear from each of you in your own words. Sarah, would you like to start? Sarah's hands were clenched in her lap. She stared at them for a long moment before speaking. "I don't even know where to start," she said quietly. "6 months ago, I met Jake at a fundraiser. He was charming and funny and seemed so genuine. Different from the men I usually met through my family's circle. More real, you know?" Dr. Torres nodded encouragingly. "We started dating. It was wonderful, easy, and natural, and exciting. He made me laugh. He listened to me. He seemed to see me as a person, not as Patricia Montgomery's daughter or a potential social connection." She finally looked up, her eyes meeting mine briefly, before skittering away. "After a few months, I invited him to family dinner. That's when things got complicated." "Complicated how?" Dr. Torres asked. "My mother is." Sarah paused, searching for words. "She's very particular about the people in my life. She has opinions about everything: who I date, what I wear, where I work, where I live. She means well, but she's controlling. And she immediately had opinions about Jake." "What kind of opinions?" "She thought he was using me for my money, that he was beneath our family socially, that he wasn't good enough for me." Sarah's voice was bitter. "She did background checks, made comments, tried to manipulate me into breaking up with him. It was exhausting." "And how did that make you feel?" "Frustrated, angry, rebellious, honestly. I was so tired of Mother controlling every aspect of my life. Jake was the first person I dated who was mine, you know, who wasn't pre-approved by Mother or part of her social circle. Dating him felt like claiming my own life back." I winced. Even now, hearing Sarah talk about our relationship in terms of rebellion against her mother hurt. So when Jake proposed, Dr. Torres prompted gently. I said yes immediately, partly because I loved him. I did love him, but partly because she trailed off. "Partly because it was a way to assert your independence from your mother," Dr. Torres finished. Sarah nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "That makes me sound terrible, like I used Jake as a pawn in my family drama." "It makes you sound human, Doctor," Torres said. "Motivations are rarely pure. We can love someone and also appreciate what being with them represents in our lives. The question is whether the love was real, regardless of the other factors." "It was real," Sarah whispered. "At least, I thought it was. Now I don't know what was real and what was part of Jake's performance." "That's what I'd like to understand better," Dr. Torres said. "Jake, can you walk us through your perspective? Why did you lie about the apartment?" I'd been dreading this question, even though I'd known it was coming. I took a breath and tried to organize thoughts I'd been wrestling with for weeks. "It started as a stupid, impulsive decision," I said. "When Sarah first came to my apartment, she assumed it was nicer than I could afford on a resident's salary. She made a comment about it being cozy in a way that felt like she was politely not mentioning that it was small. And instead of just saying, 'Yeah, I got lucky with the hospital housing program,' I panicked." "Panicked how?" Sarah's mother had already made it clear she thought I was a gold digger, that I was dating Sarah for her money. And here was Sarah in my subsidized apartment, probably thinking the same thing her mother had said, that I was clearly not in her socioeconomic league. I ran a hand through my hair. So I lied. I said a friend was letting me stay there while he was abroad. It made me sound like I had connections, like I was doing someone a favor rather than receiving charity. It was stupid and vain and insecure, but I didn't want Sarah to see me as the poor resident who needed help with housing. "And then the lie grew," Dr. Torres said. "Yes, once I'd told it, I had to maintain it. Sarah started asking about this fictional friend Simon, I called him. When he was coming back, what he did for a living, how we knew each other. So I invented details. And then she wanted to know when I'd have to move out. So I said Simon had extended his time abroad. And then we got engaged," Sarah said quietly. "And you should have told me the truth then." "I know. I should have. But by that point, I was terrified. I'd built this whole fiction, and I didn't know how to undo it without losing you. Your mother was already trying to break us up. If you found out I'd been lying to you for months, it would prove everything she'd said about me being untrustworthy. So you kept lying," Sarah said, her voice hardening. For months. Through our engagement, our wedding planning, our marriage, you let me make major life decisions based on false information. What decisions? Dr. Torres asked. We talked about where to live after we got married, Sarah said. Jake said his friend's apartment wasn't an option long term, so we needed to find a place together. I suggested we get something in my name, since I had better credit and more financial resources. Jake agreed. Even though... She stopped, her face reddening with anger. Even though he already had an apartment, in his name, that we could have lived in together if he'd just been honest. The housing assistance was only for me, I said quietly. You couldn't have lived there with me. The rules were clear about that. Then you should have told me about it, and we could have figured out something else. Instead, you let me pay for an apartment we're not even living in, while you kept your secret apartment and pretended to be displaced. Her voice was rising. Do you understand how that makes me feel? Like you were keeping an exit strategy. Like you were hedging your bets in case the marriage didn't work out. That's not why I kept it, I protested. I kept it because I was a coward, because I was afraid of your mother being right about me. Because I'd let the lie go on so long that I didn't know how to come clean without destroying everything. So you just kept lying, and lying, and lying. Sarah was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. You lied about the apartment, about Simon, about your financial situation. You tested me, Jake. You set up scenarios to see how I'd react, like I was some kind of social experiment. I never meant it that way. Then what did you mean? What were all those little tests, if not you playing games with my emotions? Dr. Torres held up a hand. Let's pause here. Sarah, I can hear how hurt and angry you are. That's valid. Jake, I can hear that you're trying to explain your reasoning. Also valid. But I want to dig deeper into something. She turned to me. Jake, you said you were afraid of Patricia being right about you. Can you elaborate on that? I swallowed hard. Patricia made it very clear from the beginning that she thought I was after Sarah's money, that I was using her, that I wasn't good enough for her, that I had ulterior motives. And the thing is, I was terrified she was partially right. Right how? Not about the money. I never cared about Sarah's money, but about not being good enough for her. I forced myself to meet Sarah's eyes. I'm a resident making $50,000 a year. Sarah comes from a world where that's pocket change. Her mother throws fundraisers that cost more than my annual salary. Her family has connections I can't even comprehend. And yes, I was attracted to that world a little bit. Not the money, but the stability, the culture, the sophistication. Dating Sarah made me feel like I was becoming the person I'd always wanted to be. Educated, cultured, part of something bigger than just grinding through residency. So you used me, Sarah said flatly. No, I fell in love with you. But I was also enjoying the life that came with you. The dinners at nice restaurants, the gallery openings, the conversations about art and literature and ideas. Being with you made me feel like I'd made it, like I'd succeeded in becoming more than just the son of immigrants who was good at taking tests. I rubbed my face, and I was terrified that if you knew how little I actually had, how much I was struggling financially, how much I was receiving help just to afford basic housing, you'd see me the way your mother did, as someone who wasn't in your league. But I never cared about any of that, Sarah said, her voice breaking. I didn't care that you made less money than me, or that you lived in a small apartment, or that you weren't from my social circle. I loved you, for your intelligence, and your humor, and your kindness. The fact that you thought I was so shallow that I'd judge you for being a resident living in hospital housing is insulting. I finished. I know, and I'm sorry. My insecurity about my own worth made me assume you'd value the same superficial things I was insecure about. That was unfair to you. Dr. Torres leaned forward slightly. This is important. Sarah, did you ever give Jake reason to believe you cared about his financial status or social position? Sarah thought for a moment. I don't think so. I mean, I enjoyed the nicer restaurants and cultural events, but I also loved our cheap takeout nights and walks in the park. I never. She paused. Wait. When we first met, I did make some comments about his clothes. What kind of comments? Teasing ones. About his ties being boring or his suits being off the rack instead of tailored. I thought I was being playful, but she looked at me. Did those comments make you feel bad? A little, I admitted, but they also made me want to impress you more, to prove I could fit into your world. That's so fucked up, Sarah said, but her voice had lost some of its anger. I was making fun of superficial stuff that didn't matter, and you were internalizing it as evidence that you needed to be someone different. It's a pattern I've seen before, Dr. Torres said. Someone from a different socioeconomic background enters a relationship with someone wealthier and begins to feel like they need to prove their worth. They start performing a version of themselves they think their partner wants, rather than trusting that who they actually are is enough. That's exactly what happened, I said. I was so busy trying to be the version of myself I thought Sarah wanted that I lost track of who I actually was, and once I started lying, it became easier to keep lying than to risk the truth. But the truth would have been fine, Sarah said. If you'd just told me from the beginning that you had hospital housing and were on a tight budget, I would have thought it was practical and smart. Instead, you made up an entire fictional friend and situation, and I spent months believing a story that was completely false. I know, and I can't undo that. I can only tell you that I'm sorry, and that I understand why you can't trust me anymore. Silence fell over the room. Dr. Torres let it sit for a moment before speaking. Here's what I'm hearing, she said. Jake, you entered this relationship with significant insecurity about your worth relative to Sarah's socioeconomic status. Rather than being vulnerable about that insecurity, you constructed a fiction to protect yourself from potential rejection. Sarah, you entered this relationship partly as an assertion of independence from your mother's control, and you didn't realize that your casual comments about superficial things were feeding Jake's insecurities. Neither of you communicated clearly about your fears and needs, and a lie that started small metastasized into something that poisoned the relationship. We both nodded slowly. The question now is this fixable? Can you rebuild trust after this level of deception? Can you communicate more honestly going forward? Can you address the underlying issues, Jake's insecurity, Sarah's relationship with her mother, the socioeconomic differences between you in a healthy way? She looked between us. Or is the damage too deep? I don't know, Sarah whispered. I want to believe it's fixable. But every time I think about moving forward, I remember how many times Jake looked me in the eye and lied. How many conversations we had about his friend Simon that were completely fabricated. How he let me plan our life together while keeping this huge secret. What would you need to feel like you could trust him again? Dr. Torres asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Complete transparency. About everything. Finances, feelings, fears, all of it. No more secrets. No more lies. Not even little ones. That's reasonable. Jake, can you commit to that? Yes, I said immediately. Absolutely. I should have been transparent from the beginning. And Sarah, Dr. Torres continued, what about your mother? How does her involvement in this situation affect your decision-making? Sarah's jaw tightened. Mother has been difficult. She's convinced that Jake is irredeemably manipulative and that I need to divorce him immediately. She's been posting about it on social media, pressuring the family to take sides, making everything worse. How do you feel about that? Frustrated, angry, like I can't make my own decisions without her interference. Sarah looked at me, but that doesn't mean she's wrong about the divorce. Maybe the marriage is broken beyond repair. Or maybe, Dr. Torres said gently, you're having trouble separating what you actually want from what your mother wants you to want. That's something we'd need to explore in ongoing sessions if you decide to continue counseling. Ongoing sessions? Sarah repeated. One session can help you understand the dynamics at play, but it can't rebuild trust or resolve deep-seated issues. If you want to save this marriage, you're looking at months of work, individual therapy for each of you, couples counseling, possibly family therapy to address the boundary issues. With Patricia, it's not a quick fix. And if we decide it's not worth the work, Sarah asked. Then you proceed with the divorce, but at least you'll do so understanding what really went wrong. Either way, this session has value. Sarah looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since she'd arrived. I could see the struggle in her expression, the hurt and anger warring with something else. Love, maybe, or just the memory of it. I need time to think, she said finally. This session helped me understand some things, but I'm not ready to commit to more counseling or to staying in the marriage. That's fair, Doctor, Torres said. Take the time you need. But Sarah, I want you to think about one question. Are you considering divorce because the marriage is genuinely unsalvageable, or because it's the easier path given your mother's pressure and your hurt feelings? Sarah flinched. Those can both be true. They can, but they're not the same thing. One is a decision you're making for yourself. The other is a reaction to external pressure and internal pain. Make sure you know which one is driving you. The session wrapped up shortly after. Dr. Torres gave us both some paperwork resources for individual therapists, information about her approach to couples counseling, a questionnaire about our goals and concerns. Sarah and I walked out together but didn't speak until we reached the sidewalk. Thank you for coming, I said. I know that wasn't easy. No, it wasn't. She hugged herself against the January cold. But I'm glad I did. It helped me understand some things. Like what? Like, I think I've been so focused on being angry at you that I haven't thought about my own role in this. The comments I made, the pressure I put on you to fit into my world, the way I used our relationship as rebellion against Mother. She shook her head. We both made mistakes. That doesn't excuse what I did, I said quickly. Your mistakes were normal relationship stuff. Mine was systematic deception. I know, but Doctor, Torres was right. I need to figure out what I actually want, instead of just reacting to hurt and anger and Mother's manipulation. She looked up at me, and her eyes were softer than they'd been in weeks. I'm not promising anything, Jake, but I'm going to think about whether I want to try to save this or let it go. That's all I can ask for. She nodded and started to walk away, then paused. Jake, for what it's worth, I do still love you. I wish I didn't, but I do. That's what makes this so hard. My throat tightened. I love you too. I never stopped. I know. That's the worst part. I believe you. I just don't know if love is enough to fix what broke. She walked away then, heading toward the subway. I watched her go, feeling the same fragile hope I'd felt on Christmas Eve. One session hadn't fixed anything, but it had opened a door, created a space for honesty that hadn't existed before. Sarah was thinking, instead of just reacting. She'd acknowledged her own role in our dynamic. She'd admitted she still loved me. It wasn't much, but it was something. I pulled out my phone and called Catherine. How did it go? She asked. Better than I expected. Sarah's not ready to commit to more counseling, but she's not ready to finalize the divorce either. She's thinking. That's progress. What's your next move? Respect her space. Let her process. Hope that she decides we're worth fighting for. And if she doesn't? I looked back toward the subway entrance where Sarah had disappeared. Then at least we'll have had one honest conversation, and maybe that's the best I can hope for. But even as I said it, I was hoping for more. Hoping that love, real, honest, complicated love, would be enough to bridge the gap my lies had created. Hoping that Sarah would choose us. I didn't hear from Sarah for 5 days after the counseling session. 5 days of checking my phone obsessively, jumping every time it buzzed, hoping for a text that never came. Marcus kept me updated through the family grapevine. Sarah was still at her mother's apartment, still processing, still caught between what she wanted and what Patricia wanted for her. Julia's been pushing her to do individual therapy before making any final decisions. Marcus told me over coffee, but Patricia's been pushing just as hard in the opposite direction. She's already contacted 3 different divorce attorneys to find the most aggressive one. More aggressive than the one Sarah already has? Apparently, that one wasn't aggressive enough. He actually suggested mediation might be appropriate given the short duration of the marriage and lack of assets. Patricia wanted someone who'd go for blood. I rubbed my temples. This is insane. We were married for 6 months. We don't even have joint bank accounts or shared property beyond some kitchen appliances. It's not about the assets. It's about Patricia proving a point that you defied her, deceived her daughter, and need to be punished for it. Marcus leaned back in his chair. She's called a family meeting for this weekend. She's going to push Sarah to finalize the divorce and cut all contact with you. Will Sarah go along with it? I don't know. A month ago, I would have said yes. Sarah usually does what mother wants, eventually, but she's been different since the counseling session. Quieter, more thoughtful. Julia thinks she's actually processing instead of just reacting. That's something, at least. It's something. But Jake, you need to be prepared for the possibility that Sarah decides to end things anyway. Even if she understands the dynamics better now, even if she still loves you, the trust is badly damaged. Some relationships don't survive that. I knew he was right, but knowing it didn't make it easier. On the 6th day, I got a text from Sarah. Asterisk. Can we talk? In person? Asterisk. My heart leapt. Asterisk. Of course. When and where? Asterisk. Asterisk. Tomorrow evening. 7 p.m. There's a coffee shop near the hospital Bennett's. Do you know it? Asterisk. I did. It was deliberately neutral territory. Public, but quiet. A place where we could talk without running into her family or my colleagues. Asterisk. I'll be there. Asterisk. Asterisk. Okay. And Jake? Come alone. No lawyers, no family, just you. Asterisk. Asterisk. Just me. I promise. Asterisk. I barely slept that night. Every possible version of the conversation played through my mind. Sarah, asking for a divorce. Sarah, asking for another chance. Sarah, stuck in the middle, unable to decide. I rehearsed responses to scenarios that would probably never happen, trying to prepare for something fundamentally unpreparable. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around the next evening, I was a wreck. I arrived at Bennett's 15 minutes early and ordered coffee I didn't drink, sitting at a corner table where we could have privacy. Sarah arrived exactly on time. She looked better than she had at the counseling session. She'd clearly been sleeping more, eating more, taking care of herself. She was wearing a blue sweater I'd bought her for her birthday, which I tried not to read too much into. Hi, she said, sitting across from me. Hi, thanks for agreeing to meet. I needed to. After the counseling session, I've been thinking about everything Dr. Torres said, about what I want versus what Mother wants, about whether I'm making decisions or just reacting. She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup the barista brought her. I've also been doing some individual therapy. 3 sessions with someone Julia recommended. That's good. How's it going? Hard, enlightening, uncomfortable. She took a sip of coffee. My therapist asked me to make a list of things I know to be true about our relationship, separate from the lies and my mother's narrative. Want to hear it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Okay. Things I know to be true. 1. You made me laugh more than anyone I've ever dated. 2. You were genuinely interested in my work and my thoughts, not just my family connections. 3. You were kind to service workers, strangers, people who couldn't do anything for you. 4. You never once asked me for money or suggested I should use my family's influence to help your career. 5. You were a good doctor who cared about your patients. 6. You respected my boundaries and never pressured me physically or emotionally. She paused. 7. You lied to me systematically for months about something fundamental. The last item hit like a punch, even though I'd been expecting it. Those are all true, I said quietly, including number 7. I know, and that's what I've been struggling with, how to reconcile all the good things about you and our relationship with this massive deception. My therapist said something interesting. She said that people aren't one-dimensional, that someone can be kind and caring and genuine in most ways, while still being dishonest in others, that humans are complicated and contradictory. That's generous of her. It's not generous. It's realistic. Sarah set down her coffee cup. I've spent the last few weeks thinking of you as either a complete liar or a victim of circumstances. But you're neither. You're a good person who made a terrible choice and then kept making it because you were afraid and insecure and trapped in a lie that grew bigger than you could control. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't. But it helps me understand it. And understanding it is the first step toward deciding what to do about it. She looked directly at me. Jake, I need you to answer some questions. Honestly, no matter how much the truth might hurt. Can you do that? Yes. Did you ever cheat on me? No, never. Not even close. Did you marry me for my money or my family's connections? No. I married you because I was in love with you. Because being with you made me happier than I'd ever been. Because I couldn't imagine a future without you in it. Did you keep the secret apartment as an exit strategy? A backup plan in case the marriage failed? I thought about that carefully, searching my own motivations. Honestly, I kept it because I was afraid to give it up. Not because I was planning to leave you, but because having it meant I still had something that was mine, independent of your family's influence. It was a security blanket, not an exit strategy. But I understand how it looked. Sarah nodded slowly. That's what I thought. My therapist said something similar, that people who feel powerless in relationships sometimes hold on to things as a way to maintain autonomy, even if it's unhealthy. Did she say that about you and your mother? A ghost of a smile, among other things. Turns out I have some boundary issues to work on too. She traced the rim of her coffee cup. Which brings me to my next question. If I had discovered the truth about the apartment before my mother did, if I'd found out on my own in some private way, how do you think I would have reacted? I considered this. I think you would have been hurt and confused, probably angry, but I think we could have talked through it without lawyers and public shaming and divorce threats. I think it would have been a serious relationship problem, but not necessarily a relationship-ending one. That's what I think too, and that's part of what's been bothering me. I'm not sure how much of my reaction was genuine hurt and how much was performance for my mother's benefit, how much I was actually devastated versus how devastated I thought I should be. You had every right to be devastated either way. Maybe, but there's a difference between my husband lied to me and I need time to process that, and my husband is a manipulative sociopath and I need to divorce him immediately. Mother pushed me toward the second narrative, and I went along with it because I was hurt and angry, and she was so certain about what I should do. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was from Patricia's Instagram, posted 2 days ago. Asterisk update on my daughter's situation. After much thought and consultation with legal experts, Sarah has decided to move forward with the divorce. She deserves someone who respects her enough to be honest, not someone who manipulates and deceives. Proud of her for choosing herself. Number divorce strong. Number honesty. Number moving forward asterisk. Mother posted that without asking me, Sarah said. She assumed I'd made a decision because she told me what my decision should be. When I saw it, I realized how much she's been controlling this entire situation. My hurt, my anger, my choices, she's been orchestrating all of it. What did you do? I called her out on it, told her to take down the post and stop speaking for me. She refused, said she was supporting me through a difficult time, said I was being manipulated by you again if I was defending you. Sarah's voice hardened. That's when I realized I wasn't just angry at you for lying. I was angry at her for controlling my life, and I'd been channeling that anger toward you because it was safer than confronting her. Sarah, let me finish. I'm not saying your lies were okay, or that my anger at you wasn't justified, but I'm saying that my reaction was amplified and directed by Mother in ways that weren't healthy or helpful. She wanted me to divorce you immediately, not because it was best for me, but because it was what she wanted. And I almost went along with it just to make her happy and avoid confrontation with her. She pulled out another piece of paper, a printout of an email. This came from Mother's lawyer yesterday. It's a proposed divorce settlement. Want to know what it includes? I nodded nervously. Complete termination of all contact between us. A clause preventing you from ever speaking publicly about our marriage or the Montgomery family. An agreement that you'll resign from your residency program if I request it. And a requirement that you repay me for all dates, dinners, and events we attended together during our relationship calculated at over $40,000. My jaw dropped. That's insane. That's vindictive. That's Mother trying to punish you for defying her and deceiving her daughter. And when I told her I wouldn't sign it, she said I was being weak and foolish and letting you manipulate me again. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That's when I realized that no matter what I decided about our marriage, I needed to set boundaries with Mother. Real ones. Because this isn't about helping me. It's about her maintaining control. What did you tell her? I told her I was going to make my own decision about my marriage, in my own time, without her interference. I told her to stop posting about my personal life on social media. I told her that if she couldn't respect my autonomy, I'd be moving out of her apartment and limiting contact. Sarah wiped her eyes. She didn't take it well. I can imagine. She threatened to cut me off financially, disinherit me, turn the family against me. The whole arsenal of controlling parent tactics. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Ironically, having my own apartment, the one we got together, means I'm not actually dependent on her for housing. And I have my own income from the foundation work, so I'm not dependent on her money either. The only thing she can really take away is her approval. And I'm starting to realize I've been sacrificing too much to maintain that. I reached across the table tentatively. Sarah looked at my hand for a moment, then took it. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry that my lies put you in this position, that they gave your mother ammunition to manipulate you, that they made everything so much harder. I know you are, and I'm sorry too for letting Mother manipulate the situation, for not trusting my own judgment, for assuming the worst about your motivations without really talking to you first. She squeezed my hand. We both made mistakes, Jake. Yours were bigger, but mine were there too. So what now? Sarah took a deep breath. I've been thinking about what Dr. Torres asked me. Am I considering divorce because the marriage is genuinely unsalvageable, or because it's easier given Mother's pressure and my hurt feelings? And I think the honest answer is, I don't know yet. The trust is damaged. The lies hurt. But I also know that I still love you, and I think our relationship is worth fighting for if you're willing to do the work. Hope bloomed in my chest. I'm willing, whatever it takes. It's going to take a lot. Ongoing couples counseling, individual therapy for both of us, complete financial transparency, rebuilding trust slowly and deliberately, setting boundaries with my family, being honest even when it's uncomfortable. She looked at me seriously. It means you can't hide behind lies anymore, even little ones. And it means I can't hide behind my mother's opinions instead of forming my own. We both have to show up fully and honestly. I can do that. I want to do that. There's more. I'm not moving back in with you right away. I need time and space to process everything and rebuild trust gradually. We'll date again, essentially. Get to know each other honestly this time, without the lies and pretense. That's fair. And I'm telling Mother that I'm giving our marriage a chance, that I'm not filing for divorce right now, and I need her to respect that decision even if she disagrees with it, which means she's going to lose her mind and probably make both our lives difficult for a while. I can handle Patricia being angry at me. I'm already on her shit list anyway. Sarah smiled slightly. True, but Jake, you need to understand, if we do this, if we try to save the marriage, it's not going to be easy or quick. It might take months or years to fully rebuild trust. And there's no guarantee it'll work. We might go through all this counseling and work and still decide we're better off apart. I know, but I'd rather try and fail than give up without fighting for us. Me too. She pulled out a business card. This is my therapist. She recommended a couples counselor she works with, sometimes someone who specializes in trust issues and relationship repair. I made an appointment for next week. Are you available Thursday at 6? I'll make myself available. Good. She stood up, and I stood with her. We faced each other awkwardly for a moment, neither sure how to end this conversation. Then, Sarah stepped forward and hugged me. It was tentative and brief, but it was real. Thank you for being honest tonight, she said quietly, for answering my questions without defensiveness or excuses. That's the Jake I fell in love with. The one who's direct and genuine when it matters. I should have been that Jake all along. Yes, you should have. But you can be that Jake going forward. She pulled back and looked at me. I'm not promising anything except that I'm willing to try. That's all I can offer right now. That's enough. That's more than enough. She nodded and gathered her things. I'll see you Thursday, 6 o'clock. I'll be there. I watched her leave, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, and it wasn't reconciliation yet, but it was a chance. A real, genuine chance to rebuild what I'd broken. My phone buzzed as I walked back to my apartment. A text from Marcus. Asterisk, Julia just told me Sarah stood up to Mother and is giving your marriage a chance. Holy shit, dude. Don't fuck this up. Asterisk. I smiled and typed back. Asterisk. I won't. I promise. Asterisk. Another text came through, this time from Julia. Asterisk. Sarah told me about your conversation. I'm proud of both of you for being honest and willing to work on things. Also, fair warning, Mother is apoplectic. She's planning some kind of family intervention to talk Sarah out of this. Be prepared. Asterisk. Asterisk. Thanks for the heads up. And Julia? Thank you for supporting Sarah through all this. Asterisk. Asterisk always. She's my sister. But Jake? Sarah's right to make you work for this. Don't expect it to be easy. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't. I just expect it to be worth it. Asterisk. Because it would be worth it. Sarah was worth it. Our marriage, built on honesty and genuine connection instead of lies and performance, was worth fighting for. I thought about Dr. Torres's question from our session. Was the damage too deep to fix? A week ago, I would have said, probably. The lies were too big, the hurt too raw, the trust too shattered. But Sarah had shown me something tonight. She'd shown me that she was strong enough to stand up to her mother, brave enough to examine her own role in our dysfunction, and loving enough to give our marriage another chance despite everything. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Patricia would fight us every step of the way. The trust would take time to rebuild. We'd have hard conversations and painful realizations and moments of doubt. But for the first time since Sarah had discovered the truth about the apartment, I felt like we might actually make it. Not because the problems had disappeared or the lies had been erased, but because we were finally being honest with each other and with ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, that honesty would be enough to build something real, something lasting, something worth fighting for. I got home to find an email from Catherine, asterisk heard through the grapevine, that Sarah's reconsidering the divorce. Congratulations. But keep your guard up. Patricia Montgomery doesn't give up easily. Let me know if you need anything. Asterisk. I wrote back. Asterisk. Thanks. We're taking it slow, doing counseling, trying to rebuild. I know Patricia's going to be a problem, but I think we can handle it together. Asterisk. Her response came quickly. Asterisk. Good. Just remember, you and Sarah are a team now. Act like it. Make decisions together. Be transparent about everything, even the uncomfortable stuff. That's how you rebuild trust. Asterisk. She was right. No more secrets. No more lies. No more trying to handle things on my own because I was afraid of judgment or rejection. If Sarah and I were going to make this work, it had to be built on radical honesty and genuine partnership. I could do that. I would do that. For Sarah. For us. For the marriage we could still have if we were both brave enough to fight for it. The phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Dr. Chen. Patricia's voice was ice. We need to talk about your continued manipulation of my daughter. I took a deep breath and channeled every bit of calm I could muster. Mrs. Montgomery, with all due respect, Sarah and I are working on our marriage. That's between us. If you have concerns, you should discuss them with Sarah directly. I have discussed them with Sarah. I've told her you're manipulating her, that she's making a mistake, that she needs to end this farce of a marriage before you hurt her worse. But apparently she's not listening to reason. Or maybe she's making her own decision based on what she wants. rather than what you want for her. Silence. Then, you have no idea what you're talking about. I think I do. Sarah's an adult. She's capable of making her own choices, and she's chosen to work on our marriage. I'm asking you to respect that, even if you disagree with it. Respect? You want me to respect the decision to stay married to a liar? I want you to respect your daughter's autonomy. That's all. More silence. Then Patricia's voice, low and dangerous.
You're going to regret this, Dr. Chen. I will make sure of it.
She hung up. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking slightly. That was a threat. A clear, unambiguous threat. But I wasn't backing down. Not this time. Sarah and I were fighting for our marriage, and no amount of manipulation or intimidation from Patricia was going to stop us. I just hoped we were strong enough to weather whatever storm was coming. The family intervention happened 3 days before our first couples counseling appointment. Sarah texted me a warning. Asterisk, mothers called everyone to the apartment. She's making a formal case for why I should divorce you. Julia's on my side, but it's going to be ugly. Asterisk. Asterisk. Do you want me there? Asterisk. Asterisk, no. This is something I need to handle myself. But I'll call you after. Asterisk. I spent that evening pacing my apartment, checking my phone every 5 minutes, imagining the scene unfolding across town. Patricia holding court in her living room, marshalling family members and arguments like pieces on a chessboard. Sarah standing firm or crumbling under pressure. Julia fighting a losing battle against their mother's influence. When my phone finally rang at 9:30, I lunged for it. How bad was it, I asked. Worse than I expected. Sarah's voice was shaky but determined. Mother brought in Uncle Richard, Aunt Caroline, even my grandmother. They did this whole intervention thing where everyone took turns explaining why staying married to you was a mistake. What did they say? The usual. That you're manipulative, that I'm trauma bonded, that I'll regret giving you another chance. Uncle Richard actually suggested you might be a sociopath. Grandmother said I was throwing away my future for someone beneath my station. She laughed bitterly. It was like something out of a period drama, except real and happening to me. I'm sorry. The worst part was when Mother showed everyone the settlement proposal, the one with all the vindictive clauses. She'd edited it to make it sound reasonable, like she was just trying to protect me. Everyone agreed I should sign it immediately. My stomach dropped. And I told them no. I told them I was an adult making my own decision, that Jake and I were going to counseling, and that I needed them to respect my choice even if they didn't agree with it. She paused. Mother said if I went through with this, she'd have to reevaluate my position in the family. That's a threat. That's Mother. But Jake, here's the thing. I don't care anymore. I'm tired of making decisions based on what keeps her happy. I'm tired of performing the dutiful daughter role while sacrificing what I actually want. Her voice strengthened. I told her that my marriage was my business, that her approval wasn't a prerequisite for my choices, and that if she couldn't support me, I'd need some distance from her. How did she react? She asked me to leave her apartment. So I did. I'm at Julia's now, packing up my things. I'm moving into our apartment tomorrow. Our apartment. The words made my heart race. Sarah, are you sure? You said you wanted to take things slow. I do want to take things slow, but I need my own space, away from Mother's influence. I'll be in the second bedroom. We'll still be dating, not living together exactly. But I need to be somewhere that's mine, where I can think clearly and make my own decisions. Okay, whatever you need. Thank you, she sighed. This is really happening, isn't it? I'm actually standing up to her. You are. I'm proud of you. Don't be too proud yet. She's going to retaliate. I know her. This isn't over. She was right, of course. Patricia Montgomery didn't accept defeat gracefully. But for now, Sarah had chosen us. And that was everything. Sarah moved into the second bedroom on a rainy Saturday morning. She arrived with Julia and 3 suitcases. No fanfare, no drama. Just the quiet reality of 2 people trying to find their way back to each other. I'll take the blue room, she said, gesturing to what we'd once planned as a guest room. Is that okay? Of course. Whatever makes you comfortable. We established boundaries immediately. Separate bedrooms, separate spaces. We'd have dinner together twice a week. We'd go on actual dates, movies, museums, dinners, where we talked and reconnected. Everything, Julia had suggested, dating our way back to trust. The first couples counseling session was awkward. Dr. Patricia Chen, no relation, thankfully, was methodical and direct. She made us articulate what we wanted from therapy. I want to trust him again, Sarah said. I want to stop wondering if he's hiding something every time he seems distracted or quiet. I want to be the person she deserves, I said. The honest version, not the performance. Those are good goals, Dr. Chen said, but they're going to require work. Jake, you'll need to be radically transparent, even when it's uncomfortable. Sarah, you'll need to be willing to trust incrementally, even when it's scary. Both of you will need to communicate about the hard things. Over the following weeks, we did the work. I showed Sarah my complete financial records, bank statements, student loan balances, credit card bills. She saw exactly how much I made, how much I owed, how carefully I budgeted. No more secrets. You've been living on almost nothing, she said, looking at my monthly expenses. How did you even afford our dates? Carefully, sometimes too carefully. I showed her the spreadsheet I'd kept, tracking every expense. I wanted to keep up, to seem like I belonged in your world. Jake, I never needed you to keep up. I just needed you to be honest. We talked about her mother, about the control, the manipulation, the impossible standards. Sarah started setting boundaries, limiting calls, refusing to discuss our marriage, blocking Patricia on social media when she posted another concerned mother update. Patricia retaliated by cutting Sarah off from family events. Sarah wasn't invited to her cousin's engagement party, her grandmother's birthday dinner, the annual charity gala. It hurts, Sarah admitted one night over takeout in our apartment. Being excluded because I won't do what she wants. But it also feels freeing, like I'm finally making my own choices. I'm sorry you're losing your family over this. I'm not losing my family. Julia still calls me every day. Marcus texts me memes. Even my father reached out quietly, away from Mother, to say he supports whatever decision I make. She smiled slightly. I'm losing Mother's version of family. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt. Movie nights, where we actually watched the film instead of pretending everything was fine. Conversations about difficult topics, my insecurity, her codependency with Patricia, our fears about the future. Small moments of physical affection that felt earned rather than assumed. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real, I was learning, was better than perfect.